1 minute to the deadline. Deadline.
Greetings, welcome from chilly Chicago. We are ending the 2023 face-to-face diplomacy season here, but we are going to be reviewing today Carnage on the Mountaintop. By doing so, we are going to, sorry, the background music there. By doing so, I'm going to bring on two fellows you've seen throughout the year on the broadcasts with some great insight on both these players and this tournament. So first off, the reigning NADF DipCon champion from DixieCon this year, Michalis Camarides. Welcome, Michalis.
Hi, pleasure to be here.
Excellent. And just coming from the west coast of North America, someone who will hopefully be seeing a lot of for next year's DipCon, Liam Stokes. Liam, welcome.
Thanks, Kevin.
Excellent. Let me get a better view so we can get some of our lovely little graphics and broadcast. We're happy to be here live on Diplomacy Broadcast Network. Kevin O'Kelly from Chicago. We had a local Weasels game this week, so I'm feeling diplomacy energetic. So I'm happy to be here today. This is the last face-to-face event of the DipCon NADF season. This was always the tournament we would go to for the Grand Prix, which was pre-DBN, pre-virtual play, and the players would be going to snag those last points to win kind of the North American League title. This is not the final for the league title, but it is still a chance to get those last DBN points as we're getting ready to get into the height of the DBNI season with VDL finishing up, and then of course with the Invitational next February. So kind of Michalis, thinking about that. You had a victory, earlier in the year. You kind of set yourself in place to be in the DBNI. Last year when we were going into this title with Worlds, what was it like kind of going into last year in a different sense, feeling, okay, this might be different, needing one to win?
Yeah, it's definitely the sort of time of year where there's not a lot of opportunities left to earn points. So if you're looking for DBNI placement and you're not too comfortable, this is a tournament that you might be looking at to clock up a decent score. And it being not a World or a DipCon this year, it's a slightly smaller tournament, which just means that it's a slightly smaller field, so you can hopefully get a bit higher up there and grab the points.
Yeah, it's the pressure turns on. I know that League Night got into this last week, and with November and December going to finish up. We'll hear more about the pressure as we go on. We're casual today, no coat today. We're calm, we're comfortable. We don't want to make the turn yet, but we do want to look ahead, Liam. So as we get into the new year, I know a Canadian won, Cascadia last time. Shimon didn't go, so the odds were in Riaz's favor. But give us a little bit of a look ahead. We got DipCon 2024 coming up with Cascadia soon.
Yeah, we've been we already had some planning sessions going on with that, with some of the regulars, Riaz Brani, Chris Brand, McMore, and myself. We're starting to get some things put together for DipCon 2024 that will be kicking off the year, the 2024 season with Cascadia the first weekend of February. So very, very much looking forward to that. I think again this year it's looking like another Canadian is going to take it, but we'll see. If Siobhan's, I believe, is planning to attend, but we'll have to see if there's going to be a rematch.
The gauntlet has been thrown down. So listen, all you North Americans, non-Canadian North Americans, let's click on that link. The planning is underway. I know people can fly into Seattle. They can fly into Vancouver. There's multiple ways to get there. Plenty of transit logistics that we're gonna make our way up. We haven't committed to DBN on site yet, but we had a nice little trial with it a couple weeks back at Weaselmoot. So we're looking forward to it too. It's going to be a great event. Like I said, we don't want to look too far ahead. We've got a lot of virtual play coming up. The first one, Tour Britain, they finished week 6 last weekend. We've got week 7, or not week 7, but what do they call it? Week, not week. Do they call it week in the Premier League? I forget. They call it like the 7th edition, the 8th edition, back to back, November 11th, November 12th. That is on the Virtual World Diplomacy server. Let's get that one. That is this one, which was also up at the start of the broadcast. Thank you very much for the point up, because I keep going that way. That's all located there. And then the week after that is the second to last, penultimate VDL. We're getting, this is 10 weeks total. We'll be in 9 in November and 10 in December. December is always tough because you're trying to figure out how many points do I need specifically. November is the month you get to really go out. You get open play, because I think we had a November solo 2 years ago, not last year, 2 years ago. Collis, you had the 17-17, I think in October, not November. But this is the time of year. If you're looking for league play that feels more like tournament play, this November is, I always like hosting or participating in the November month, because it's just fun play. It felt like we had a bar game, like I mentioned, on Wednesday, and it didn't feel like a bar game. The players took a different approach to that game, so we were thrilled. It was a fun game, and the meta has changed this year, and I don't want to go into meta because that's a league night thing, but it's just a different style diplomacy this year. It's more open, and I like that kind of thing. And I'm hoping that's what we'll see as we cover Carnage today. We've got 5 boards ahead, so we're going to go through this pretty quickly today. We usually show the top players by DBNI, but Carnage is an old school tournament where it's more old school players that aren't in VDL. You're going to see some of the names as I'll bring up on the screen. I actually need to share this. Sorry about that. Forgot about getting that on the window. There we go. Round 1, game 1. Here are some names we're going to look at. Hunter Catcher, who I'm surprised does not have a DBNI ranking, because he was at World DipCon this year. And I know he plays at a bunch of tournaments. He may not have a virtual game. We'll check on the DBNI standings. Don't know Tom Dorman. I don't know Andy Shiner. I know Brad Blitzstein. Brad and I have faced off in many past events on the East Coast, specifically Carnage. Evan Ellis, son of Carl Ellis. Evan's been at a bunch of these events. He's a local. Jason Massbaum, we all know the initial second diplomat of the year, Peter McNamara being the first, but Jason, a regular tour player, and I think Jason and I battled at Carnage back in 2011. I'll have to go back to World Diplomacy Database. We were both much younger at that point. And then Andy Bartoloni, for anyone who doesn't know kind of the old school. Andy is an 11-time tournament winner, a lot of them in his home area of Washington, D.C. I think he has 4 Tempest titles, 1 second place Carnage, and 3 third place Carnage. So maybe this will be his year to take the title. Guys, either of you know any of the names? I don't. England, France.
No, but I got the pleasure of playing with Andy Dixie in our final game this year, so that was a lot of fun. He's a really nice guy.
Oh, excellent. Perfect. Alrighty then. Let's go to the map. Since we got about the same number of games as a League Night VDL match, let's go VDL style. McCallus, let's get you doing the orders. 19. We'll go every other year rather than every season. We'll give you a full year to get some good analysis, and Liam fill in where he missed. So, sorry, let me get my timer on here because I'll follow that. That's all right. All right, there we go. McCallus, what do we see?
All right, so my eye is immediately drawn to the west, where England presumably misorders Edinburgh. Edinburgh hold not generally what you want to be doing, but they at least get away with it in the form of France and Germany don't make especially aggressive moves against them at the start. France with a standard move to MAO. And to Burgundy, the East, meanwhile, we see, for the second month in a row, we see Sevastopol to Romania. This was a big theme at the most recent broadcast that I was on, and having not been a thing for quite a long time, I'm definitely interested to see that once again Sevastopol goes to Romania and Turkey is bringing a fleet out, and we'll see how that works out this time. It was really good for Turkey at VDL.
Yeah, I think that kind of a move can either be seen as very pro-Austrian, but I think it can also be set up, later for the fleet to be blown up and an RT to get to get off and rolling.
Also, just noticed that Trieste also misordered. Looks like that tried to go straight to Greece instead of to Albania, so that could be a painful one for Hunter.
He was going there. He just didn't realize he needed to make a stop along the cruise line. So, Venice holding is old school play. Not surprising to see that here. Again, our bar game from the week had Venice to Tyrolia, which I like to see. No Venice to Trieste this time around. All right. McCallus. All right. So now we've gotten through the first. Comment was wondering about a juggernaut. This is an interesting form if that's going to be the case.
Yeah, so it looks like everybody wants to be friends with Turkey in the east. Bulgaria goes down to Greece as Austria realizes they can't take it, so they may as well try and make a friend out of it. The fleet into Bulgaria's south coast is pretty good for Austria. That's a very difficult unit to get in place to take Serbia, so it's not actually worked out too badly for Hunter for the moment. Of course, Jason is forcing Galicia, which is a bit more of a problem for him, but yeah, at least he doesn't seemingly have a hostile Turkey, and no particular way for Turkey to turn hostile yet. France, meanwhile, puts the fleet into Spain, which is an interesting move, suggestive of possibly doing something against Italy early on, maybe a Western triple, given that Germany's building 3. Although England doesn't go for Norway, they're a bit worried about North Sea, I guess. So England's on no builds, and we'll see whether this is just an FG or whether this is a Western triple.
Yeah. What do you make of the army going to Portugal?
It's a tough place to be as a French army. There's not, it's going to take you a full other year to make that thing maybe more useful from a defensive capacity. Otherwise, it's kind of stuck behind. But if you know that you're going to give up Belgium and you want to build 2 to potentially give you some fleet flexibility and not feel too exposed to a German. Thank you very much for coming in Belgium. Now I'll keep coming. Maybe it makes sense to just have more units on the board. Once France is at 5, it is very difficult to do much against them. But having that army so far away from the homeland, doesn't really do much good anyways.
My wonder, so I can't without going back to review. Maybe let's see. All right, good. I like sitting here. I like pausing at this point. I know in VDL we don't do this, but we're not doing VDL today. This is Game Day Live, so we're gonna march to the beat of our own drum here. 2 builds for Turkey. Ankara open. Fleet there is not what you're looking to see if you're Russia, but army there is tough to get out. McCallus, how do you wave? Do you pause? How do you play this?
Very much depends who your ally is going to be. You're not in a great position to attack either Russia or Austria right now, which, I mean, it could be a rat if that's the case. And then if there's a rat, I probably would expect a wave for the second build. If it's not, then anti-Russia, you've got to be building a fleet in Ankara right now. Anti-Austria, maybe you still wave. Maybe you can convince them it's a rat and then gut them later.
All right, Liam, is it a Western triple juggernaut? Is it a Western triple? Yes or no?
Based off of this position, I think that's probably a conversation that was had. I think the German builds might tell you otherwise, or the French builds. There you go.
There you go. Tell us about those French builds.
The French builds probably believed it was a Western triple. The 2 fleets from Germany says no thanks.
All right, Liam, give us spring 1902.
All right, so we'll start in the West. A lot of confirmed moves. Not a lot of red in the West. England finally takes Norway with actually the help of the Germans, cutting off the support from Sweden, and the Germans moving themselves into Baltic. So it looks like even though the fleet disparity is on the German side right now, the Germans seem quite happy to keep England on board. France is setting up and moving straight into the Mediterranean. Meanwhile, in the center, those German units are just happy to see what happens. So this is looking like it could be a Western triple that has been forced upon. As you see in the moves in the east, we've got 3 arrows going straight up to the line. Both Russian armies there and the Austrian units. We do see not a lot of movement from the Italians. 2 holds and a move down to Apulia, while the Austrians move into the Adriatic Sea, which, as an Austrian, I don't mind being in the Adriatic. It gives you a lot of flexibility. You can say, "Oh, I'm just going to support Ionian. I'm just here for you. I don't want to, threaten the Turks." But combining with how those fleets moved, I think the Italians getting caught in the middle of a rat and a Western triple.
Yeah, this is an extremely efficient set of orders, McCallus.
Yeah, I think maybe Brad was hoping to not Western triple by putting the 2 fleets down, but maybe the diplomacy just went against him. And if he realized that Austria and Russia were going to come on him either way, then I guess this is the best you can manage. Problem is that Munich isn't actually defensible at all right now due to that second fleet. So Munich is already lost in 1902. Bit of a tough reversal for Brad after a very strong first year.
I think those support holds in Holland and Belgium, I think, were a sign of I don't want this Western triple. I don't trust these 2, especially after building that fleet. Would have thought that maybe they go the other way because right now it's with that French army not being in Burgundy anymore, Munich is completely isolated.
Yeah, well, at this point, it's what you want and what you're going to get are 2 different things. So maybe so. Brad is an excellent diplomat, and so to get 3 holds out of the middle of the board right there, that's well done.
It's surprising to see. There's not a lot of movement. I mean, even the Prussia taking the shot at Berlin without support is a little interesting. If Jason wanted to make an attempt, they really could have tried. But in the center, not a lot of movement. Belgium's still holding back, but Holland is coming down. England finally does pick up a build, so this will be interesting to see Again, still with the cooperation of the Germans, keeping them in place. France, meanwhile, 4 arrows, all in one direction. The convoy to Tuscany is at this point, a very juicy opportunity to take. There was nothing that could have stopped it. The Italian ordering nothing, complete nothing, is an interesting opportunity. Now, Tunis couldn't have gone anywhere. Apulia could have tried to defend Venice. I guess they could have attempted a convoy, but maybe Evan realized the writing was on the wall and is sitting at the bar right now.
Sometimes drop dead timing will get that. I have a fun story about Carnage. I was walking back to the table when the buzzer had gone, and it was drop dead that year, and they would not allow me to submit my orders even as I was walking back to the box. The best part about it is if my orders would have been submitted, I would have lost 2 centers, and instead I only lost 1. So cheers to not following the rules. So we don't have a lot of center shifting. 1902, much more of a positional year, McCallus.
Yeah, and France is the one who's done best, I guess, positionally. They're in a really, really solid position, and if Italy is more annoyed at the east than at France, which I think would be quite a reasonable take, they could well get some help into some Italian dots at this stage of the game. Turkey's also quietly getting a very solid position as well, though.
Yeah.
I don't mind that even though Tom got off to a bit of a slower start, the English position with the German fleets effectively stuck. The British position actually is quite strong with France fully in there. If he puts a fleet London, say he needs his 3rd fleet, he's got a lot of flexibility to do what he wants to do. So we'll have to see what the diplomacy says for the next year.
So we assume fleet build England and Vienna for Austria?
That would be my guess.
No? Army
build.
Interesting. All right.
Hard to see where that army goes, but we'll find out.
It goes nowhere. We'll let McCallus finally describe the first red French arrow that we've seen in 3 years, I think.
Yeah, so France, tapping Venice, I guess, why not? It doesn't actually do anything either way. They do get into Rome for free, and because Turkey prioritizes Naples, they still get to backfill Tyrrhenian Sea, which is really nice. Meanwhile, the rest of the West is pretty much just England going up to Barents. They do get to put 2 on St. Petersburg, but other than that, not a lot happening in the West. Austria continues to push west and is immediately punished for it by Turkey, who now does take the opportunity to take Serbia from them and gets into Naples. If Turkey can cut some sort of deal with France here, the 2 of them could do really well pushing upwards from the south right now, because everybody else is sort of stuck in a stalemated, locked position, and those 2 are just getting richer.
What was the order that North Sea gave? It looks like there's an order there, but
convoy error, I think, but it wouldn't have mattered because Norway didn't get out.
No, I was curious I think it looks like it attempted to go to Norway. Yeah.
Yes, convoy London to Norway.
Noting again, in this case, it doesn't look like a drop dead issue, but because Adriatic got its order in, but Apulia had no order, which it could have saved Naples if it had covered it. It was Turkey there was a gamble, I suppose, of either going to Apulia or going to Naples. So, but again, Adriatic was not needed to support Venice. Even if that was the deal, that was simply not needed. So you could have covered both.
Yeah.
In that instance, or at least attempted to.
Yes, all right. So we're 3 years into the game. I want to say the line is starting to form a little bit here. Liam, if you're, what can we get out of it? There was maybe a stab. So what I was thinking of when I was watching Hunter's Order is maybe Jason says, "Hey, I'll support you to Bulgaria," knowing that if Serbia moves, it can't be support held. and it allows Buffalo to take Serbia here. If you're Jason, do you stick with Turkey at this point?
I mean, I think right now, if I'm Jason from this position, I'm feeling quite stuck. I'm feeling like there's not his units are up against the Germans, which aren't really threatening him at this point. So he's got a lot of flexibility to move those units around. Even if he is feeling a little bit of pressure in the north, he'd be free to distribute those units as he sees fit. I think having that fleet in Romania really gets rid of a lot of the flexibility he has in the south of who he wants to go with, because he only has the 2 units down there. So I think if I'm Jason, I'm feeling a little frustrated and stuck, and hoping to get one of those 2 is out of position or at each other's throats, and then when the opportunity strikes, Jason's going to be there to make his move.
Yeah,
I'd be quite worried if I'm Jason at this stage. The fact that Turkey seemingly stabbed Austria without tipping Jason off, so that Jason didn't come in and get involved, go down to Gal, possibly Rum as well. I mean, there's a world where this is going through Serbia and now takes Rum with Austrian support, and that this is all a ploy for Austria and Turkey to take out Jason. And I wouldn't be too surprised if that's what happens here. I think that would actually make quite a lot of sense for both of them at this stage.
With Turkey getting 2 builds or looking to get 2 builds at this point, you could feel where Jason is probably the most frantic during these negotiations. Well, AT did not team up, but the tide did turn against Buffalo a little bit.
Yeah, so no attack on Romania. It wasn't a ploy. It was just a Turkish stab. And Jason has decided that, having not been tipped off and unable to get anything out of Austria, he may as well go the other way. A little bit surprised that he didn't go to Sev and try and do something aggressive with the Ukrainian army. That's sort of stayed there doing nothing now. And he's still stuck on the front against Germany, again, doing nothing. So it's an okay turn for Andy, despite losing Serbia. He does keep hold of Naples, and elsewhere, nothing much really happens. A lot of red arrows in the west. England does get into St. Petersburg, but doesn't get to convoy into Norway behind. So the momentum isn't great for them, despite the build.
Yeah, it looks like the alliance structures at the start of the game. The West has held to what they had either decided or been forced into, I think, on Brad's case. But the East has devolved. I think the Austrians attacking the Turks with the help of the Russians, mind you, with Romania. So the rat is no longer with us, at least for this turn. We could see that change, especially with the British Army now in St. Petersburg to come behind. But I think if right now, if I'm Brad, I'm regretting that third fleet right about now.
Yeah, well, they get the third fleet. I mean, Sweden is now German. I guess maybe here, Leon. The question for you is: there's two key pulls. You get to pick either Russia's or Italy's. Which take your pick of your guess, and McCallus gets the other one.
I think if I'm Jason right now, I'm pulling that Swedish fleet and just giving up on the north. That would be my guess.
All right, McCallus, do you keep Army Tunis or do you keep Fleet Adriatic?
The moves Italy made last year makes me think they're not particularly interested in survival in this game. They just want to get out and go and socialise or whatever. So I would be not too shocked to see them keep Adriatic or even keep Apulia and just say, yeah, I'm done. See you guys later. Okay.
Kept Tunis, which with competing fleet in the south maybe keeps them alive a little longer. I mean, Tunis hasn't moved, so receiving support could be fun. Army kamikaze. What do you best for survival?
I mean, Army Con is I'm still going to attack Austria, and sorry, Jason, let's try and patch things up. I guess it'll work now that Jason's pulled Rum as well.
And that's exactly what I was going to say. Is the pulling of rum says to Turkey, hey, I can't hurt you at all, so why not at least attempt to work with me? I think the most interesting build is the Army Eddy. What's that going to do? It might as well have been a wave, because it's unless you're really throwing armies up in Norway and trying to get into Finland and really trying to jam it up there, or you're worried that those German fleets and any French fleets might suddenly start turning around, and you want to feel secure. Those two armies, nobody's getting on the British Islands in the next 2 years. I can tell you that.
I like it. All right, Liam, give me spring 1904. Man, I am very impressed with the French consistency of all orders.
I think we've had two red French orders so far this game. We'll start there. As it looks like they're repositioning for a defensive hold down there. I don't think this is much of a retreat. I just think this is a realignment of units. It actually reads to me as a cooperation between the French and the Austrians. You note that the Austrians have left one of the units on the front line and are coming down against the Turks. So I think this is France and Austria cutting a deal to position themselves against Turkey. The Turkish moves, meanwhile, are consistent of pushing towards the west, leaving Jason and Hunter to either agree upon self bounce or that's it's hard to see if Turkey was cooperating with Russia, why he wouldn't have supported Ukraine into Romania from Bulgaria. It had nothing else to do. It supported Greece, but it didn't need to. So hard to see unless that was purely agreed upon, which I don't think it would have been. Meanwhile, in the middle of the board, not much movement other than Prussia backing off. So Germany now only has 2 units against it in the middle. So I think Brad's about to find some newfound freedom. Meanwhile, in the north, not much movement. Barents actually going back to Norwegian. So this could indicate that Tom is feeling maybe somewhat exposed somehow. Hard to see why you wouldn't guarantee your support into Norway from this position, just to make sure that army got there and move in the fall, considering you have another army in London to stay defensive. But I think it's a turn of realignment, I think, in the south, and a turn of not much in the north.
Yeah, that's a really curious pull of Barents back to Norwegian, because it means that England's actually about to lose St. Petersburg now. Not supporting themselves to Norway. Maybe they were worried Germany might come for them, but this is just pretty bad. I know they've got an extra army that's essentially superfluous that could be pulled anyway, but this is still a pretty painful reversal for them. I think we also have to give credit. France's tactical orders have been really good, and they're all going through in black arrows, but diplomatically, this is the stage of the game where either England or Germany or both could have just slid to Channel, slid to Picardy, and gutted France from behind while they're so committed down the south. And for a moment at least, France is diplomatically making sure that doesn't happen. And it seems that the tension is perhaps more EG related, probably due to the 3 German fleets. And that's just good news for France, especially if they get Tunis out of this now and get another build to not be quite so vulnerable on defense while still having their really strong position in the south.
Yeah, the move away from St. Petersburg is definitely a learning experience for Tom and for any newer players here. Gotta keep that position. John Jameson is happy somewhere. Liam, give me the convoy.
Loving to see the London to Holland convoy. Completely caught Brad, out of sorts. The Kiel not moving. Berlin, I understand the hold in Berlin, but Kiel not either going to Baltic to help against Sweden or self bouncing Holland and Belgium. Belgium and Holland self bouncing could have. There were a lot of other things to do, but supporting Berlin was not one of them. Unfortunately, Brad also loses Munich in this turn as well. France has finally said, let's help the East out. That is that prearranged France-Austrian coordination that I think happened last turn. We're seeing come to fruition here. Although we don't see the help of the Austrian. I will notice if you want to put your magnifier on Venice and Rome, the two holds that I'm sure there was a conversation of Venice will support Rome, right? I'm sure that was a conversation that happened and that just didn't come. So that is an interesting note. And I will also point out that Andy and France could have taken Tunis this year, no problem. Convoy through Tyrrhenian and supported by West if they really wanted to take Tunis or take it with the fleet. I don't know why convoy to North Africa. It's nice this time of year, but I don't know why an army would want to be there at all.
Yeah, it's just not the unit you want to be taking Tunis. Like, Army Tunis is not something you want there at any sort of stage of the game. I think Tuscany defending Rome and just moving the fleets down to do this plan would have been better. Tunis wasn't guaranteed if Turkey had support held it, but yeah, it's first time France has been outmaneuvered in this game, and it looks like it's Austria that's done it to them. It's notable Austria's pulled back from Turkey as well, so maybe Austria has gone, hey, I'm getting Munich, I'm just going to rebalance the alliance and work with Turkey again.
Yeah, and it looks like that bounce in Romania. I think the rat may be back on at least. Fleet Ankara would tell us otherwise, but I think looking at this, Jason's feeling much better about his position now. I think I'll say again, Brad is absolutely regretting that third fleet, but let's see what those pulls are, whether it's both the fleets or whether it's any armies here. So we'll have to see what happens there.
Yeah, 1904 is generally when we see this first turn of, okay, who's getting their sights set on a board top, and with the rat reforming and Turkey off to a head start at this point, Makalas, Turkey or the board, Turkey or the field at this point.
Turkey's not the best position, but it's not a completely dominant position. They can very easily lose those centres that they've gained in Italy. It's quite hard to defend Rome as Turkey at this stage. They just don't have the fleet presence to push through France. So even though they're top at the moment, and it's a very good Turkish position for 1904, it's not writing on the wall for anyone else. There's a lot of people who can still turn this around and top this board.
So I will point out for those who are checking out the scoreboard right now, there is a slight change to the Carnage scoring system for those. It is a very old school tournament, but there has been some new blood added into the scoring system. You'll note that the current leader in Turkey with 7 is actually 300 points ahead of where he normally would be. That is the addition of a leader bonus. That is a 300-point bonus for each center above second place. So in this case, they are one above the tied 6 points for second. So they are at 7,300 for their score, which will only increase for every center that they gain above their second place counterparts.
Brandon named it Carnage because it's Carnage with Carthag's scoring adjustment. So we're going to the Carnage system. All right, but you bypassed the question. All right, so Turkey or the field?
I think it. I think France has. I think France has a good. I actually don't mind the French position. I think England and Germany do have some of the problems. So I think that between Turkey and France is sort of where I'd be putting my money now.
All right.
I changed my answer.
Yeah, if I'm Germany here, I'm feeling a little miffed. Did France know about this? If France did know about this, here's where you're sliding those armies west just to create some chaos. I'm not saying
France supported Australian units, so they definitely knew about it. Yeah.
So if I'm Germany, and I'm not going to say I've been this player before, but yeah, my eyes are set solely on France at this point.
Yeah, I'd be strongly considering going to Picardy and punishing France for the -1 dot stab, as does indeed happen.
It is your turn to describe the order, so I didn't know what was going to happen, but it was right on cue. Give us the rest.
Yep, Germany, seeing that France had to pull after stabbing them, just slides into Picardy and goes, all right, France, you've ruined my game, I'm going to ruin yours. Great news for Turkey, who gets into Tunis as Italy walks out. So my idea that Italy was done with the game does seem pretty accurate, as the first chance they've had to walk out of the dot, they do it. Austria also puts Germany into Burgundy. So Brad, I guess, is trying to be tip of the spear for the 80 or Rat or whatever it is. Jason does an awful lot of nothing with most of his armies, but does piff Finland and go anti-English at this stage. And doesn't look like he's actually going to get anything out of that, though, as it's sort of a 3-on-3 around Norway, unless Brad makes the casting vote against the other person who stabbed him last term, which was England. So we shall see.
I will. The interesting move that stands out to me is the Holland Burgundy bounce in Belgium. You would have to think at this point in the game that England and France are working together. It's hard to see how keeping England out of Belgium here is helpful to France. If England was in there, there would have been a guess around Paris at that point of what happens. Now there is no guess, and Paris is guaranteed. So that bounce of Belgium stands out to me.
It's possible they were both trying to make sure that Belgium couldn't support a unit against the other. So England was wanting Belgium tapped so that Holland couldn't get piffed or anything.
Yeah, you're right. That actually could be the case here.
All right. In the fall, here we go. We get the guaranteed take of Paris, and France is still efficient with their units.
Yep, Turkey once again gets to keep moving forward, and the Rat is definitely still a Rat as Austria puts Russia into Berlin. So even though Brad was stabbed by England, he doesn't help Russia take Norway and loses Berlin as a result. So Brad's game continues to be in a pretty tough position. England's game, they made that stab on Germany and haven't been able to follow up and take anything more. So the momentum is entirely on the eastern side of the board now, and it looks like it's a question of which one of the Rat is going to end up topping this board. And Turkey is still in a monster position, but Russia's got builds and can do interesting things with them.
I will note that interesting thing would be currently empty St. Petersburg. So a fleet, I believe, is what we're about to see from Jason. He took the risk of clearing St. Petersburg. So I would imagine we see a fleet, in this case, probably south coast, to go against Brad. Oh, he went north.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. He's going to try and get Norway and lock Scandinavia down.
And yeah, France giving up in the Mediterranean. Not much you can do. The armies are the most defensive units you can keep. And Italy putting another fleet down. Or Turkey, I should say.
Well, good tactics again by France. Other than, I think, the one turn where convoying the army over to North Africa.
These have been pretty solid. I think that the tough choice was the fleet getting into Brest. You have to cover it, but now Mid-Atlantic is exposed. The same cooperation exists in the east that has been with Jason now getting into Kiel. The defensive moves, if England is trying to defend Germany, if the West has cobbled together some kind of cohesion, that the tactics don't necessarily reflect that. I think there were some better choices that could have been made to reflect that. I guess they wanted to make sure that the Russians aren't moving, but it looks like Austria says they will.
Yeah, I mean, the reason you go to Baltic is so that you have the free on Sweden, and they're looking to try and push Russia back on that front. But out of the two, I think I'd rather be defending Kiel than try to retake Sweden here?
I think, I mean, in this position, Kiel is fully defensible from this position. There's no stress on it. If Ruhr just supports it, so hard to see the tactical benefit of covering Baltic, at least in the short term. Maybe there's some long-term considerations or some diplomatic. As soon as France gets up there, that could break the whole line anyway. So maybe that's their thought, is if France does get into Burgundy, Ruhr is not going to be very useful anyways.
Yeah,
that's true.
McCall, follow up. I got to hop off for 1 minute here, but follow up is, so we come out of a Western triple. Usually when it comes out of a Western triple, it kind of falls to two of the three against the third, or the third just gets dismantled by another side, but the two of them sticks together. This situation doesn't seem like we've had any alliance out of any of the three following the three. The three worked together fairly well at the start, but they kind of didn't evolve. How do you, when you're coming out of a Western triple, if you're planning on stabbing it from within, when and where do you start lining up kind of that secondary alliance?
Well, it looked like it was supposed to be an EF. Like, England stabbed for Holland on the turn France put Austria into Munich. Fine, but they've obviously at some point coordinated that. It's unlikely they both separately came to the conclusion that, all right, let's attack Germany. But I think the problem is that France, they just didn't do it in a way that was very good for them. It helped Austria, it weakened Germany, but France got nothing out of it. And because of the reversal in the south, they got a disband out of it. And that just meant that England didn't have an ally who could actually follow through against Germany. Germany had a reason to go and ruin France's game. Sorry. Ruin France's game, and just because they've been screwed for nothing. And if I'm Germany in that position, I'm way more annoyed at France than I am at anyone else, because France is the one who stabbed them for -1 builds. And just that has then devolved into a situation where nobody in the West can really do anything. France's botched stab has sort of it's just opened the door for the East. The East work together, they're all growing, and the West has sort of devolved into client kingdoms and a lot of petty rivalries that none of them are going to get anything particularly great from this game as a result.
I think this represents the strong diplomatic abilities of the three Eastern players, or a combination of them, that are, when that move of England and France turning on Germany that year, I think that there must have been some indication that the rat was not going to stay together, that there was some promise, we'll stab Germany, two of you will stab the third, and that didn't happen. Because I can't see, especially having a little bit of hindsight here, any value of that stab. Like you said, Germany just has, the only thing Germany cares about now is ruining France's game, and that's exactly what's happened here.
Yep. Turning points in the East. There's no reason for. There's really not a position to, but is there any reason to reshift if you're the rat?
At some point, they might start squabbling over who exactly tops, but it's the first round of a 3-round tournament. You're not going to be wanting to stab two allies to seize a big score at this stage, so I wouldn't be shocked to see some sort of negotiated outcome.
And I think keeping a note the scoring change, I think the only conversations that'll happen is to make sure that the leader is only one. If there is going to be a single leader, that they're only one center ahead, if not some kind of shared top, to keep the scores even lower, two ahead and one center behind.
Yeah, the problem with getting a single leader though is a shared second drops you all the way to 5,500 points, and that's a big drop.
There is no split between that leader's bonus, so it does not go 150 to the shared top. It is simply lost points.
Yeah. Now I know from coming back from, like, you get a second place. From a scoring perspective, you think about it and you're like, okay, I'm not that far off. A first place gets me to like basically 2 shared tops. Now with this 300-point bonus, though, if you can run away with maybe a 6 center gap and have a real good game, that's still only 1,800 and 2 places. So 73 to a shared 55. That's a 6 center top, which is harder to do. So people are still one. Ooh, good.
I think that there's just a solid case for a three-way top in this scoring system.
Same. The common theme of the East keeping together is staying here. They're happy to let the Turks move up unhindered. The Austrians get a little bit of movement to Ruhr and Munich. Meanwhile, the Russians trade their dots. It looks like there's a three-way center trade happening in Scandinavia, with the Russians taking Norway, the Germans taking Sweden, and England said, "Thank you very much. I'll take Denmark." Meanwhile, there's a little bit of defensive positioning from France. Although I think now that Gascony has moved to Burgundy, I think it leaves them quite exposed. I think Turkey's got a very good opportunity here to now convoy themselves into Spain for free. I think that's what I'm predicting here for next year, that we'll see a convoy from Greece, most likely, or from Naples into Spain. It would be hard not to want to do that as Turkey, although you might, the more you send that way, the better opportunities you give a player like Jason and Hunter to come and get you. So you are going to be thinking about those builds, as Jason will, I believe, pick up one here.
I mean, this game also has all the hallmarks of a potential 11-11-11, with the West in complete chaos and Turkey and Austria and Russia all breaking across the line. Like, there is no longer any sort of line against them. Yes, France is getting a build, which makes their position slightly more defensible. So Spain isn't guaranteed yet, but it's still a pretty rough position. If E and F don't get on the same page pretty much immediately and work together from here on to try and hold back for as long as possible, I struggle to see a coherent argument against doing the 11-11 from this position.
Well, the beauty of this scoring system is that we don't have to sit through and suffer the elimination of 3 players in order to get there, because even if you're eliminated to get to 11-11, you get the same score whether you're eliminated or you remain with the centers you have now. So hopefully Austria is gifted 2 centers, or Austria is cool with a shared top and a sole third on his own. Key builds. Germany probably pulls a fleet. Probably. England. What? Liam. What are you building if you're England? You got to get another fleet there to stop the Turks.
Has to be another fleet to. I would actually put it less against the Turks and more against the Russians in the north.
Mm-hmm.
You love your partner in France, but you got to look out for number 1.
Fleet London seems the best, and resurgent France maybe doesn't. The walk into Spain doesn't happen as easy as we thought.
So France is still in a pretty rough position if AT stick together. I also really question the value of putting a fleet there rather than an army in Marseille right now. That defensively, that's a fleet that can easily get trapped and just can't offer the same flexibility that an army can. You're not getting that out into the mid, so why build it?
Yeah, there's no synergy with that fleet whatsoever. So that there's and there we go.
No.
All right.
Excellent. Well, we got the answer we thought we had. Is Jason with a nice comeback. We thought he was trapped, and one tactical misorder allowing one build and then the next build and the next build. I think he built every year after taking St. Petersburg. So we were again debating on. There was a point about our bar game where someone said we were talking about when you were talking about the support from Venice to Rome. One of the guys came up to me after one of the turns and said, "Well, you didn't ask me for it." And I said, "Oh my gosh, we had a 2-minute conversation. Everything was implied that you were going to do something." He goes, "Yeah, but you didn't ask specifically for the order." And I was like, "Okay, fair enough. I didn't." So, and maybe that was the case. Maybe it was implied that it was going to be the hold, and didn't get that way. But Nice game all around. I think that a couple people paid for maybe some tactical misorders, but all in all, good alliance and well played by Bartoloni, because it was a straight line straight up and picked the alliance when he needed it. A little tough point maybe with the attack on Serbia, but they ironed that out real well. So
Yeah, and I guess that there wasn't a coherent argument against a three-way top, but the coherent argument is if Russia and Turkey just say, Austria, nah, you're not having one.
Yep.
Well, with Jason building that army in Warsaw, I think that was a bit of a forced Hunter take this draw, or we're going to just go.
Well, that was going to be if that didn't draw there, my follow-up was going to be at one point I was just going to say Turkey, but Russia, getting back into the top. Yeah, you say to them, look, I know we want a three-way, but you don't have the position to force it. So we're going to do it two-way, and either you're happy with it or we'll grind you out too. So, I think cooler heads prevailed, and we get to round one, board two, game two. Brad Blitzstein playing on both boards, it looks like. So thank you, Brad, for stepping up with that. As we mentioned, we've got the reigning Armada Regatta champion, Ed Sullivan in England. Chris Camel, local. I remember Chris from, you probably would have seen Chris last year, right, McCallus?
I wasn't at Carnage, so that would have been difficult.
No, I thought you were there at Worlds last year. Nope, guess not. Then we might remember him from the broadcast, we'll say. I do remember Chris. Randy Lawrence hurt. He was at Moot last year, Dixie this year, I'm sure. In Germany, Graham Woodring, a longtime player. In Italy, David Miller, excellent player, although I don't know. I thought he moved to the West Coast. I think he's on the West Coast now. And then Scott Richards. I do not know Scott, but the Diplo Rats are having a house game. So he maybe took, since these games were all over the weekend, maybe he drove back for a third day of diplomacy in New York today. We'll see. All right. We'll pick up the pace a little bit. We said, we're going to speed through these games, and that was a good one to go a little longer on a lot of different variety. But we're going to go a little faster here. All right, Liam, you get 1901. We'll go. You get the odd, and McCall.
Sure. This one. A lot of mostly standard openings. The only move that I would say is of note this year, your mouse is right on top of it, is Venice to Piedmont. All the other orders seem relatively standard. The agreed upon bounce in Black Sea. We'll see that Smyrna goes to Khan, which has fallen a little bit out of fashion, but I think has actually started to come back a little bit to give Turkey some flexibility around what they do with Bulgaria and where those units move. So otherwise, this is a pretty standard spring 1901.
Yeah, I mean, this looks like 90% of games when I started playing on WebDip 10 years ago, with an Italy going to Piedmont by itself, which used to be quite common and is very uncommon nowadays. This is the old-fashioned Turkish opening of both armies up and nothing really happening in the west.
Yeah, Paris to Burgundy without support is more defensive, but he gets away with it. To the fall. Oh, I love that tricky move.
It looks like Italy was waiting for the self bounce, hoping to deny France that build in Spain, but France wanted to make sure that they guaranteed that build.
Yep.
However, in doing so, it looks like they've given up Belgium to the British. I would hope that they did I'll let you have Belgium, even though there was nothing they were going to do, but hopefully that was a move Chris and Ed had discussed. Elsewhere, Germany making sure they get Holland this year. Maybe Randy has seen Ed bounce Holland before, which I know is a move that Ed has used in the past. Elsewhere, looks like an unfortunate convoy misorder by Graham Woodring down in the south. Ionian not issuing the convoy. Whether that was a mistake or a C looked like an S, and there was an order miswrite. And I will point out that Scott Richards has made it into the Black Sea.
Yeah, once again, we see Russia parting a fleet in Romania. That just seems to be the in vogue move of the month.
So last I didn't catch League Night. Was there a lot then of build Fleet 7 this case, like this one?
Yeah, I think at both Liberty and in VDL, Liberty in particular, I think it happened like twice in 3 games, and yeah, it just seems to be very popular at the moment, and this is one of the reasons you can do that.
Holy cow! English fleets run amok.
A lot of every country that had a build had, except for Austria, built a fleet.
Nope.
England with 2 of them. I would love to see a fleet Trieste. That's always a fun build if you can get it in Winter 01. But
I promise this will be the last reference of my bar game, but we did have fleet Trieste in Winter 01.
Well, Brad built 2 fleets in 01 in Germany in the last game, and he built 2 armies in this game. Maybe he should have split the difference in both, but we'll see what happens.
He mixed up which pad he threw into which box.
There we go.
All right, McCall's. All right, so yeah, Ed pummeling down on the German.
Yep, so no Western triple in this game, but this is just looks like a pretty solid EF at this stage. England going all in, and also seemingly having a good relationship with Russia, who's helping them to stagger at. Doesn't put any unit up to St. Petersburg. They've got a vaguely defensive unit in Livonia, and of course are in Silesia, so it's just an all-in on Randy. Not sure what he's done to deserve this, but it looks like every single neighbor he has is attacking him. So I've just spotted Austria also going to Bohemia. And in the south, well, Russia built the second fleet so that they could force Black Sea again, and that's what they've done. They're just getting better and better positioned down there. Really solid for an AR going forwards. The thing about an AR is that it's very fleet light when it comes to the mid game, but if Russia can get a second fleet out into the mid, and at some point Austria can build a fleet in Trieste, you don't need Italy. So this is the way to do an air without the Italian on board, and Italy, who sort of vacated their position in this game when they failed that convoy to Tunis. The Russians and the Austrians have gone, yeah, whatever. We'll just keep working together, and we'll kill Turkey without you.
Yeah, Turkey hoping and wishing for AT there, just did not get it. Yeah. Fall 1902. All right, so Tunis taken.
Yeah, Italy finally does get to build. Germany, this is about as bad as a fall of 02 can possibly go. Loses Denmark, loses Holland, and loses Munich to 3 different countries. For the second game in a row, we're seeing France stabbing Germany and not getting anything out of it, but at least this time they're not disbanding. And their position is still very, very solid with their little core around mid-Atlantic. There's no easy stab on them from the English, and no way for the Germans to get revenge like there was last time. And the East, yeah, AR just mop up what's left of Turkey. Bulgaria falls to the Austrian now. This is the point where I would strongly be considering a fleet Trieste if I'm Austria.
He vacated it, so
there it is.
There we go.
Let's see what value that's going to add here, but I can imagine that we see the Austrian effectively replace the Italian as the fleet presence with those two Russian fleets. I think that's what we're going to see. Unless France and Italy can kind of deal to hold up, to block up the Mediterranean.
Yeah. I think diplomatically, you say to Italy, hey, I'll leave you in peace to defend from this French invasion, and I'm going to go and finish off Turkey. And Italy goes, oh, I'm not getting anything, but I can't do anything about it.
Yeah. And this might explain Brad's maybe tactical woes in the other game is this one provides him a little more opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Liam, spring 1903. Lots of black in the middle.
Yeah, it looks like Turkey trying to make a couple guesses. Unfortunately, loses Constantinople. Whether that was a misorder from Greece, or whether Brad decided that that's actually, let's let that fleet come out and I'll sneak on in, or have the opportunity. Either way, it works out for Brad. So great turn there for the AR. Meanwhile, in the center of the board, we'll see David take Berlin unhindered, while he is trying to move up to the north because he does have an Ed Sullivan problem. What had been some cooperation between David and Ed has turned into a British Scandinavia, which they will likely lose Denmark now in the fall unless Randy decides to get involved. But I think at this point they both messed them up, so it's just whichever David or Ed can sweet talk Randy enough to keep them going. But it'll be a bit of a coin flip.
I think there's a pretty solid case for David trying to pull Denmark down into Kiel now. If Austria and Russia are on the same page, that just secure those German dots and give up on Scandinavia. Ed, he's chosen France as his main ally rather than Russia in this game. There's an interesting call. Like, France is definitely not going to threaten Ed's position in that alliance. Like, Ed is going to be the senior partner in that alliance pretty much for the rest of this game. It's hard to see a time where France is going to be able to unbalance that in his favour. But the flip side, I think picking a fight with Russia, I look at this board and say, right, well, what's the mechanism to stop Austria running away with this?
I think that's once Turkey's out of the picture and David decides, well, I'll disband those fleets and I'll focus all in the north. Unless France is willing to prop up the Italians and again stay as that junior partner and not pick up any centers, stay down to 5. Maybe they get one out of the whole deal. This I could see this game going for a while, or I could see this locking up actually in relatively short order. Once they see the writings on the wall and if it gets stymied in the north.
I feel like one of Ed or Austria is likely to get a pretty good position pretty quickly, and that the rest of the players on this board, given the new scoring thing, will probably want an early draw. This could well be the turn that guarantees a sort of 1905, 1906 draw in this game.
And following up on Liam's initial comment, don't we all have an Ed Sullivan problem?
Some people will call it a problem. Other people will call it a situation. However you want to dice it. Ed is a factor.
Even bigger of so here.
It'd be even bigger so here. I don't know what magic Ed had spun to David this turn. What sweet nothings were whispered. What the not covering St. Petersburg with Livonia. Is a very, very questionable choice by David, I think, in this case. Whether that's a misorder or not.
I think I get it. I think if you look at David, he's going +3 from Kiel, Berlin, Ankara, going down on Sweden. I think he was calculating that he could build there, and Ed, if they bounce, that becomes another northern fleet. So there is a reason for Ed not to make this move. He's obviously lost the gamble.
I see. That could have been a gamble. I think you're right in that case. I think in this case it looks like David won't build this year because of the gamble at St. Petersburg.
Yes. Now as he lost that, he won't build.
So I don't know if I'm in that position. I think I don't. Personally, I don't know if I'd take that gamble. I'd want to make sure I get that build in Moscow, get the army, and take that.
Yeah, I'm not saying it was a good gamble to take, but I think that must be the thought process behind it. I can't see any other reason why you wouldn't go to St. Pete. So yeah,
because there's no guarantee you're getting Ankara there, and so possibly losing the center by not doing that.
That's a good point. I mean, they may have been David may have had a chance at Kiel here. It looks like some deal was cut maybe with Ed and David around Denmark and Kiel, because Holland does cut hell, which would guarantee that Denmark moving into Kiel would succeed. So maybe there was some level of deal cutting happening there between David and Ed, and that was the conversation. And I think going to St. Petersburg was, like you said, a gamble.
Yeah, and I mean, Ankara, I would imagine, was probably some sort of diplomatic thing. The fact that they've pushed Turkey into Ionian Sea and Turkey's not defended, I'm guessing that Scott has gone, right, I'll be your Janissary, I'll be that extra fleet in the med.
Yeah.
And so they probably knew that Ankara was going to fall, because
Yeah.
you don't cut that deal and have no intention of following it as Turkey. You either say, hey, I'm on board with you, or fair enough, I'm going to fight to the end and die. There's no point losing reputation on lying unnecessarily as a 2-dot Turkey at this stage of the game.
And
Also,
the last thing I'll point out is Belgium has just changed colors.
Yeah, I'm guessing that was by agreement. But obviously Ed was piffed in Holland as a result of it. So
right, which is why he's getting 2 builds here. Is he had a build in ready to go. He lost 2, picked up 3, but he had a piff, so he's getting a rebuild here.
We'll go a little earlier on who do you like? I think I did McCallus first. All right, Liam, who do you like?
Right now, I mean, normally my money goes towards Ed, but I think Brad, I think, is actually a really strong position. I think when Austria can get that second fleet down, their flexibility skyrockets from there. The temptations to build a third and a fourth go up as soon as your fleets get present. So I think that if there is some animosity between Chris and Ed, I think Brad will take this.
Yeah, it's hard to look beyond Brad. I think the problem with Ed taking St. Petersburg with an army is it forces David to pull Ukraine up to Moscow at this stage. And like, David is now even more of a junior partner in the AR than Chris is in the EF, and Brad at some point is going to be able to take Rum pretty much whenever he wants it if he needs to. He's got the position, especially with a Turkish Janissary, to take Italian dots as well. Ed just doesn't have the same growth path as Austria, and I kind of feel like I don't know what the first year that you're allowed to accept a draw in this game is, but I might well see it at either this year or the start of 05 when Ed is 1 ahead of Russia and everyone else just goes, yeah, okay, we've got to call it now before Austria is on a 4 or 5 center lead.
Well, the only thing is with those 2 nagging southern Russian fleets, if David wants to be an entanglement, and if they are turn, or if Brad turns on David, he could just be annoying but I think diplomatically that those 2 work it out quickly.
So yeah, I mean, it looks like Austria pulls back Con to Bull, but also gets in a position where they're the only one who can take Smyrna still, because they're in a GNC instead. They seem to have some sort of deal going with Italy at the moment, as Italy supports Austria into Piedmont. I mean, if you get Italy as an extra Janissary on board, this is just even better for Brad. It's a pretty good turn for Chris as well, who gets to walk straight up into Holland. Ed piffs Helderland by. But the problem that Ed has done, because he was worried about Germany and Russia working together, he decided to support hold Denmark, which he didn't actually have to do, because like Helderland and Kiel were both being piffed by him. There was no risk to Denmark, and so by doing that, he's actually losing St. Petersburg, as he didn't go over and cover off against that. So I guess that there's still some hope in this game for David as well. This turn's actually gone a lot better than I expected it would for him.
Just like Jason.
Although whether that Ankara to Bulgaria, whether that was just an order that you wanted to write, or whether there was some confusion whether that was supposed to be black to Bulgaria, and oops, I accidentally wrote Ankara. Now I can take Con without you retreating to Smyrna. There could be some shenanigans there.
Or maybe it was supposed to go to Con and they were going to piff it.
Could be.
As it is, Austria does take Smyrna and doesn't defend Con, which I think makes sense from the alliance play. You probably be giving one to Russia anyway. Turkey, the problem with being a Janissary is that if there's a bigger country that's also a Janissary, your value drops very, very quickly. And as soon as Italy decided to Janissary for Italy, there was no real reason to keep Turkey around on this board. So yeah, let's just take Smyrna and be done with it. Ed does get Holland this time, as France walked back out for them. So the power's still on with Ed there, possibly because he was losing St. Petersburg. And Austria just keeps moving units into slightly better positions every single turn. I still look at this and go, then next turn is a very, very solid case for a draw vote for everyone on this board.
Yeah. Wonderful moving Kiel to Baltic, getting the armies up there. I mean, the AR is well-oiled machine.
And Austria has a guarantee on Venice now, and the Turkish fleet is gone. Unless David is about to stab Austria, I don't see any reason for this game. Oh, actually, David's ahead.
David is ahead at the moment. David has come out ahead.
All right, maybe they go another year.
I think if I'm Brad, there is some wonderful dots available. Now, those two armies put down by David could kibosh Brad. Any thought by Brad of trying to push further? You know, David could tell him take it now, or let's fight. Which I think, looking at this position, it would be a tough battle between the other two. While Chris and Ed have not had any bumps in their relationship, so it would be hard to see them splitting up here. So, you know, if I'm Brad and looking at the choice of either fighting David and letting those two keep rolling on us, or because they're going to have Ed has numbers on Kiel could be lost here. I think it's a guarantee that Kiel is lost this turn if they play their cards correctly. Denmark cut Baltic, Burgundy cut Munich, and Ed will take Kiel. So I think I could see game over right here.
I can also see a sort of 8-8-8 split happening. Interestingly, they don't force Kiel this turn. They can still do it in autumn. Now one of those Russian fleets is piffed, which any hope that David had of stabbing Austria in this game, you needed both of those fleets down there. So that's gone. Yeah. And that's also a signal to the West that I'm not going to stab. Like, you pull that fleet off the board, you've just told Ed and Chris that this AR is not breaking. And well, it's not breaking from the Russian side anyway.
Yeah, we will. Oh, very interesting. With what happened, Venice was taken and now has been vacated for a rebuild.
I think this is 8-8-8, is it not?
Here, let's go to reveal.
Yes.
Yeah. I imagine that was all negotiated, and there we go.
Off the boards. Well, can we go back? Yeah, let's look at. So here's the final position. They must not even have done their builds, which is not supposed to happen, but whatever.
They might have done them on the board, but just not bothered to enter them into backstabber.
Come on, take care of DBN. McCallus, right result?
Yeah, I think for the first round of a 3-round tournament, this is what you want. There were more points on the table for Brad, probably not for anyone other than Brad at this stage. And the diplomatic cost of stabbing David and pissing off Ed, and also France as well, who I guess they're not part of the overall top, but they'd still probably be quite annoyed. There's just too much diplomatic cost, and there's not enough reward. Like, the points difference is small unless you're miles ahead, and even then, that's probably not happening.
This really is a result that we could have, looking at the makeup of the board, we could have actually guessed that, as soon as spring 1901 took off, Ed's signature move is a 3-way shared top. The first round of a tournament, Ed will take a shared top. I haven't looked at the stats, but if we went back in Ed's tournament play to his first rounds, I would argue that 75% of them have been shared tops.
Yeah. Less this year, though. We were talking about that at Weaselmoot. He has kind of abandoned that result, but in bigger tournaments and in like the virtual diplomacy championship DBNI type, those are ones where he values that strong position to start with. So.
It's a strong position, but also without putting a target on your back. Looking at the scoreboards, even though it's only one round, people are still looking at the leaderboards, and you look at the top 3. Ed's not on there, but he's actually there, and that does play into some of that strategy.
Yep.
Yeah, Carnage story just rewards 3-ways very strongly. So
yeah, this 300-point differential. I'm curious to see now as we get into round 2 and round 3. how that may play out. Because, with a 500-point difference, that's just a 2-center, breakaway. And that's not unheard of for tops. So we'll see.
Kevin, do you know if this is all 3 rounds count or is there's a drop round?
That is a great question. I will see if I can find the rules online, or maybe someone in the comments is join us. That is a good question. If we don't know, we will find out at the end, like everyone else. That was Friday night. Friday night at Carnage. A lot of people get in Thursday night. For you people who have dinner Thursday night. The rest of the folks who get in on Friday, because Carnage is a little bit a ways from kind of the major airports. Boston's like 2.5 hours. Manchester's 2 hours. Albany, New York, I think is just under 2 hours. So it's a hike to get there. It's a great weekend. We probably got some of the videos from last year's event we could probably throw on. Although this one's in Killington, so maybe I don't know if this is. I think they moved from last year, so maybe either way, it's still more than an hour trip from the airport. So Friday night, it depends on when you got in. Some people push the envelope and want to go a little later on Friday, because Saturday there's 2 rounds. Last year all rounds counted, but it was dip count. Yes, okay. So it'll be different. Now we're getting into Saturday morning here. And then these are all on-time games, so you're forcing up against the next deadline. Friday is really the only one where you don't have 2 rounds and no deadline, where you're tired and fresh. So if you push late, so I know everyone wants to go for the 3-way. Friday night is the best time to push, and if you're going to go for a solo, you're going to go for there. When you're fresh, round 3, anything crazy can happen.
So the games are Friday, Saturday, rather than Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Okay.
Friday, Saturday. The awards were this morning. I don't know who won. I don't know anything about it, so I'm following along. But Carnage, even last year, I think it was maybe if they had 2 rounds, on Friday last year as opposed to just 1. I guess I've not heard it. I've seen it in person. Been on the receiving end of this here. So if it is, generally when it's not DipCon or World DipCon, it is Friday night, Saturday. So this is Saturday morning, round 2, game 1, an all-star lineup. Randy, who did not have a good game by nature of, I think, where he was in that one. Playing in the middle of the board again in Austria. David Maletsky, who's the TD and host of this, always has interesting ways of selecting boards. One year we got to put in what country we wanted to play, and then he randomly drew players out of a hat to put where you were, and if there were ties, it was based on seed order. So who knows how anyone got placed where they got placed. David Miller, Jason Mastbaum, Andy, who had a nice game in round 1 in Germany. Chris Campbell in Italy, kind of next to his ally Ed Sullivan in Turkey, and Barloni, who was in the East in round 1, stays in the East in round 2. This is going to be a fun one.
I'm excited for the Eastern dynamics here. The Randy, Ed, and Chris are back in the East, so we'll have to see. We'll have to see what shakes out here.
There was no Western triple. Probably not going to be an Eastern alliance, except for Ed Sullivan posturing at the start. Liam, go first again. I liked how we moved last time.
Well, Ed is foreshadowing where he will end up. That army will end up in London. I think that's what he's trying to say.
Prediction.
Otherwise, this is a very, very standard spring 1901. Venice holds. That's like you said, Kevin, not necessarily a move that you're super thrilled with. There's always better things to do than a hold, but in this case, Chris just wants to see what's going to happen, I think, here. Otherwise, there's not much to discuss other than the support to Burgundy, I suppose. Instead of going singly.
I think Jason does do that order, the supported attack.
Almost, yeah. I think he states that's and he would have probably told Andy that that's what he's going to do.
Yep.
It's a very standard gunboat thing as well.
Yeah.
All right, to the fall. This is not terribly.
Jason
standard.
would not have told Andy about that. Let's make that very clear. An unfortunate missed convoy by David Miller. Is that I think maybe he convoyed to Holland and changed it last minute? Is that what that's telling me?
Yep.
Yeah. So whether he intended to go to Holland originally and like one of those two units swapped last minute,
or purposely misordered.
Could be, could be, but I think in this case he would have been better off with one of those succeeding, regardless of either or. Yeah. We will see Sevastopol in Romania. This is the third game in a row of this tournament. That fleet loves being in Romania, and he is rewarded by not having Ed be in the Black Sea, which if Ed knew that Sev was going to Romania. The Black Sea is always a nice place to be, especially without clearing Smyrna for a build. He wasn't rotating to Ankara. Ed has changed his prediction. He's not going for London anymore. We will see him in Paris shortly. So,
well, I actually think he's changed the prediction. I think he's going for both.
Oh, okay. He's one before then the other.
Yeah.
I was looking at the southern portion of the board. When you said that there was a missed convoy, I thought you said someone missed convoyed Smyrna to Paris. So
we'll see that soon.
Yes.
The Italians do take Tunis with the army, following up as well from Venice, which is an interesting follow-up. There's not much need for that army to be down there. Again, this would be a case where holding in Venice would actually be a very valid option. There's no real need to vacate it unless you're telling the Austrians, hey, you really don't have to worry about me. I think the bounce Sweden is the only other piece of note.
Which is a really painful move for Germany to do when you've got an EF attacking you.
Yes.
France picking up 3 with the pickup of Munich. Everything else pretty standard. Army Moscow, McCallus, what do you think?
I think that's just Andy hedging his bets there. No need to upset anyone, especially as his position in the north. He might want to go up to St. Petersburg, but he might want to, he's going to be able to pick a side between England and Germany most likely, and he's going to wait and see which one that is. And he also may want to cover Sevastopol if, for example, Ed Sullivan decides to build Fleet Ankara.
And so ordered. Fleet London and Army Brest. Let's see how those.
Well, definite EF in the north. England goes into Helderland, goes into North Sea, so I think we can conclude they probably did mean to bounce Holland, and it was a misorder in that regard. Jason, the problem with France with 3 builds, one of them has to be a fleet. There's no world where 3 armies is the right decision, but building it in Brest would have left dangers to Picardy, and building it in Marseille means you can't force Burgundy. It's with Germany in Burgundy, it's a slightly awkward set of builds either way. But it's okay if Russia is coming in to help. If Russia is there to hinder, that's more of a problem. Andy does get into Sweden now and possibly gets Norway as well. We'll see whether this is agreed with England or whether he's actually helping Germany. Meanwhile, Ed is coming full force at Andy right as AI come full force at Ed, which is generally not great news for Turkey or for Russia.
I would have said that this is the AIR trying to get rid of Ed. However, Vienna does slip into Galicia here, with Warsaw going to Silesia. So I think Andy was under the impression the AIR was on, and I think the AI has said maybe it will be, but we're gonna be the junior partner in this, and that's too bad. I think the France holding in Marseille there is an interesting choice in that it doesn't necessarily. I guess he didn't want, if he thought that Burgundy was going to be dislodged, he didn't want it to retreat to Marseille. So I suppose that's the logic there. And they absolutely didn't want it to go to Gascony. That would have been catastrophic. But he does manage to hold on to Munich, and I think it's probably likely that he does hold on. I guess it's a bit of a guess here, but
I think that there's solid argument that he supports Russia to Berlin here.
Yeah, I think that would be a reasonable offer here. Because now he does have the army in Gascony. He can take out Burgundy if he wants to take a shot at it, or at least get better positioning, especially if David's willing to help, convoy to Belgium or something along those lines.
Yep.
But the AI, if I'm in the board right now, I want to be Chris or Randy with the AI. I think so far if they can manage to keep it up, I think they're in a good position to do so.
Yeah, I was going to say the three players playing Austria, Italy, and Russia are not virtual players by any means. So any appearance of an error that looks like an error is mutually by coincidence. What's that line they always put at the end of the movies with anyone who appears like this? It's purely coincidence.
Yeah.
I mean, you say that airs haven't been the default meta in virtual for quite a while now. It's Turkey dominated.
Yeah, true. But these guys aren't going at it in that way. Although, again, yes, I remember many a time as Turkey getting squished early on in my playing career. So, but the way to combat that, is to fight against Russia. But that turns around here.
Well, this looks like the air is back on. However, it is whether it was an air in spring or not, it is in autumn with Russia putting Austria into Bulgaria. Ed, I guess, diplomatically walked out of Black Sea to try and get Andy on side, but it hasn't paid off because Andy just backfills behind him. Ed does keep Smyrna because he's not gone for Sev, but this is a losing battle. When you're Turkey against an AIR, you don't win. We saw that many a time a couple of years ago when the air was the default, and we saw this play out again and again. This time, Ed has decided that he's still got enough time in this game to order some more capital cities. So, having done London and Paris, he now gets to order to Vienna. Meanwhile, France is getting in on the action and ordering to Ankara. So everybody likes their fake moves. Jason does keep Munich because he puts Russia into Berlin, which I think makes a lot of sense. And Andy's actually got a really, really good position out of this year because I'm guessing that Norway was agreed as he's put England into Denmark. And that's actually a really good way to delineate the north between England and Russia, because arming Norway is not remotely threatening to England. From this position, you can make a very solid ER alliance. So Andy getting 2 builds and the Black Sea, 3 builds in the Black Sea. Fair enough. That's one way to play 1902.
And I will point out that other than Jason's stab on Ed Sullivan, all of his moves were successful. The support into Berlin, he got into Burgundy, he got into Picardy, none of which were necessarily guaranteed with the way that he ordered them. But they were successful, so I think that's and again, more patience in Marseille. He was not willing. He's not willing to give up a risk for some tempo. He wants to make sure he's secure in his position, and I think he sees where the Italian is and knows he has time. Although for Ed's, around the world in 90 days of capital cities, one of which he should have considered convoying Bulgaria back to his own capital city of Ankara and convoying back. That having another army back there would have really given him some flexibility, and then just expanded the fleet in Black Sea as the gift to Andy and say, look, it's not there anymore. So
yeah. It's a tough position, but I think you're right. You want 2 armies and a fleet if you're going to try and defend it. 2 fleets, you lose the ability to support in too many ways. The gift is rejected.
It's very, very much rejected and returned. the 3 builds Russia. Andy has, I think, secured his current position for a while. I don't see much change there unless Ed is able to pull some magic out with the Austrian. But even then, that window looks pretty much gone.
And
for Ed there.
Yeah, not building in St. Petersburg. This is Andy very much going, hey, England, I want to work with you. And we'll see whether David accepts the offer. But yeah, Andy is playing the diplomatic game of I probably want to slow down at this stage because I've gone very big very quickly. So I'm going to do a slow crawl turn. The fleet in Sevastopol eventually can become useful, but at this stage is not going to do anything. Yeah, he seems to be slowing his tempo down, which I would assume is a deliberate ploy.
Yeah, Andy and David have played many a game against each other. I'm sure they know exactly what to say to each other at this point. So, and on that tune, now let's go right at him.
Well, it looks like Ed has unfortunately not been able to sell anybody on his world tour, and has his 3 AIR neighbors coming full force at him, Italy convoying into Syria, Austria taking Constantinople, and Russia making the attempt to Armenia. So I think this is likely the last year that we see of Sullivan here. Meanwhile, Jason finally, his patience has paid off, has made his move into the Mediterranean, helping, working with the Germans a little bit to take Berlin, pushing the Germans to Munich. It looks like this is the, but as a thank you very much, they take Belgium. David and Jason take Belgium and Kiel. So I think this is Andy saying, I like you guys more than these two. Take my dots here. Here's some help.
Yeah, and maybe he's going to try and be a tip of the spear janissary. I think everybody on this board just pretty much laid their cards on the table except David Miller. Like, France has committed heavily against Italy. Italy in return has sent some armies that way, and having done the convoy is clearly going to go and deal with France. Austria has come to the line. Russia, I guess Russia hasn't either, but Russia isn't in a great position to do anything against anyone through choice. David Miller, he has a decision to make. Like, either he's going to go after Russia now, or he's going to stab Jason. He hasn't had to make any sort of decision. He's got the most flexibility on the board at this stage, which is always a really nice position to be in.
Although I will point out, Kevin, if you want to have a magnifying glass on that orange arrow from the Black Sea, where that unit ended up after the Ed Forster retreat, it did end up in Bulgaria, which they could have known as a possibility, but I think that being in the east coast of Bulgaria does cause some problems, I think, for that alliance, unless they're willing to trade some units around.
Is that when you're hinting at off the board is always an option?
Off the board is always an option, especially knowing that Ed was going to lose a unit anyways, and they could have defended Bulgaria from this position. Like, there's no tactical benefit to that fleet, and I think if you do long-term plan to work with the Italian, pulling that fleet goes a long way to say AIR, let's keep going. Getting rid of that fleet, rebuilding another army or in the north, says the AIR, I'm on board. So maybe this is Andy unintentionally having a tell of the AR is actually closer than the eye.
We'll just force it. We'll just force the Black Sea. We don't need
we'll just get rid of it. Although I think Randy had said, if you don't get out of there, I'm taking it anyways.
Yeah.
I think that was some of the logic there.
And the thing about pulling that fleet off the board was that you wouldn't necessarily be able to rebuild it because he'd lost Berlin. So
yeah.
You actually are making a decision a turn earlier than you probably really want to.
Yep.
Meanwhile, again, Ed is finishing up in his own capital city, losing both Khan and Smyrna this turn. And looks like Jason has set himself nicely to take or attempt to take Tunis next year. The build from Italy will frustrate that a little bit. But I think with Jason building, we'll see a fleet rest and start to have some more presence down there. I think you said last turn that everybody but David had put his cards on the table. I think David has just put his cards on the table here. Those arrows effectively say, Andy, it's been nice working with you, but I'm okay leaving the North Sea and putting pressure on you because you can't retreat there.
Yeah.
So here's where we stand. Winter 03. Fleet Naples, most likely, I assume.
If it has to be.
Fleet.
There's an argument for Fleet Rome, but just because of the way that they could pull. But I think that I think Naples is what we'll see here.
Any argument? Fleet Eddie, likely, most likely.
I would imagine so. I mean, Fleet London's possible because France basically has to build Fleet Brest, and maybe you want to just keep them in check in that regard. But I don't think it matters either way. We know exactly which direction both of those fleets are about to go.
Fleet Trieste, maybe.
Well, you don't count don't count Jason Mathbaum's direction until we see the orders. There is an argument for Jason to turn around now that with how committed David is, and if Italy wants to turn on Austria, but I think with the armies in Austria's home centers, that there's no reason for Chris to go on with that.
Yeah, and like McCullough said, waiting one turn to pull that fleet black as Bartolone did here.
Yeah.
All right, 1904, McCullough, tell us about the English attack.
So the EF continues. England had the guarantee on Sweden, takes the guarantee on Sweden, is as friendly to France as they can possibly be by going to Norwegian Sea rather than North Sea. It's rare to see a 1904 where England has already said, "Hey, I don't need the North Sea anymore," but that's the state of play, and it makes a stab for either of them pretty difficult. I know Jason could technically walk up to Irish Sea, but given that England will be building, that's not a thing. Andy is scrabbling to try and get a defensive position against the EF, but it's all a little bit too little too late. France are into Munich as well. France are into Tunis because they made the correct guess on what to do down in the south. And yeah, they probably won't hold it. It's not holdable this turn, but it's still a pretty decent position for them. And yeah, this is all EF and all Austria in the east, who is now very much the senior partner in this air, with Russia having painful setbacks in the north and Italy scrabbling to keep some sort of position in the south. So for the second game in a row, we're seeing an Austrian position which is very, very rapidly strengthening due to their allies going down rather than due to Austria themselves going up.
Do you put any weight into Bulgaria tapping Romania, or is that just to keep them honest?
Yeah, that was probably just in case Rum tried to slide into Bud or Serbia or something.
And I was going to ask, Serbia to Albania, you mentioned Tunis likely being able to be taken back. Give me an odds, Liam, on what percentage Austria stabs Italy here. Real low? Somewhat?
I was also looking at why Aegean was the mover to Ionian as opposed to East. I mean, there's a conversation of Chris wanting to make sure he holds on to Smyrna or having to play there, but not having direct control of your own defense and trusting your ally, I think is a slight. I don't know. The conversation might have been, "Hey, I'll go to Ionia, I'll defend you, no problem," and that might have been the extent of it. But I might have put a little bit more weight of which fleet is where. I think that we could see a deal cut here between Jason and Randy. If Jason, again, with how committed David is up in the north, this could be a France-Austria. We saw that last game where there was some coordination between the two countries, and we could see Jason and Randy cut up both their partners here.
I feel like it's probably a little early to do that. I think maybe next year is a bit better when you've got Ankara secured and you can try and do something on Smyrna and just fully lock in the position, but there's definitely a solid case for Italy is very much on the down. It's hard to see them growing from here to the rest of the game.
And Trieste will be vacant after this turn. There was, like you said, there was no stab this year. There was cooperation still, Austria, Italy, but the position that Austria is in after this turn, it would be very hard to argue why you wouldn't stab here. Even just building the fleet in Trieste, projecting it in the winter, and just rolling with it. Jason pulls back defensively a little bit here, and
the really fun thing here to do as Austria is to wave if you're brave enough to not build an army in Budapest.
That's a good point here. Russia doesn't have. I don't think Russia builds this. Russia disbands this year, so waving. You don't have an enemy at this point as Austria. You have your allies, and you're in a good position to mess up the French defense here now that you're in Piedmont. So
it's interesting that Russia's kept Romania rather than Sevastopol. I think the alliance play is probably pull Romania off the board so Austria doesn't have to worry. But the flip side is that having the fleet there is way less flexible for your own defense. So Andy is also seemingly quite worried because we're talking about the Austrian stab on Italy, but there is an Austrian stab on Russia as well, where he charges into Romania and goes to Armenia and maybe working with Italy or with just by himself. They go in after Rub and Sev this year as well.
Yeah, I think that's a good point to bring up. Is right now the Italy might actually be more useful to Randy right now than Russia is. As Russia's not going to hold the north. There's nothing Randy can do about it, but Randy can help Chris up against Jason. With that one fleet in the Ionian, I think they can hold that as long as they like at this point. Turanian, they can, unless Jason gets fancy with a convoy to Tuscany or something like that he's able to pull out. But I don't think he has the units to do that with having to defend the middle of the board as well as Marseille.
The stab on Italy gives France a lot of position, whereas the stab on Russia doesn't give England any position they don't already have. So I think tactically, it actually strategically, it makes more sense to stab Andy at this stage than to stab Italy.
And England's armies are buried in the center. There's no risk of them going around the top. So taking 2 from Andy right here, I think would be pretty beneficial for.
Yep.
Where's Jason's next dot? If they don't stab, if Randy goes, you know what, Andy Barloni's going to lose 2 up north.
Mm-hmm.
He's got 3 units to pull up north, but he doesn't lose anything other than that unless I stab him. Jason needs a dot in order to keep pace. David's getting 2 more likely unless they trade for 1, but that's not growth. That's trade. Where's Jason growing?
There also isn't a spot to trade really with Belgium being French already. It would be there's no amount of units to facilitate a trade.
Right. Yeah, Holland's flexible
you
at that
trade
point.
Liverpool.
Yeah.
You could.
It's a thing.
You could.
Yeah, but then you're finding. Are we talking about? Or it's winter 1904. We're already talking about how we're getting to 999 again. Is that what we see?
Maybe.
It could be. I think from this position. Jason is at the top currently, but I don't think David gives in until he's at least in the mix. A lot of red this year. A lot of red. Very, very little movement in the south, except for Smyrna going to Armenia. You have to think that was arranged. And, that wonderful misorder in Budapest. I meant to go to Vienna. I meant to go to leave Romania. Oh, no. We will see it. If we don't see a stab in the fall by the AI on the Russians here, I would be shocked. That is just leaving sectors on the board.
But Andy he's out of his use in this game now, and there's not really much reason to keep working with him.
And there it is.
Yeah. The question on Jason, as you say, if he wants to keep pace, now that he knows AI aren't going to break, does he want to stay in this fight, or does he try and do something against England. And England's building, and if England's smart, they're building an army right now, which makes it harder. But that army is probably going to go straight to St. Petersburg. So there is still a window, I think, for Jason to make the Irish Sea and stab that way, if you can get away with it diplomatically from the tournament perspective, because this is a tournament where stabbing isn't necessarily highly rewarded.
I think unless you know that you're going to end up more than one center ahead, that you want that those 300 points are not enough to break any kind of a tie from a shared top. You need the 600 if you're going to try to do that. So
there's also the case that Randy is topping but had a very poor score in the first round, whereas David and Jason both had good ones. There may well be a case where they're happy for Randy to be the top and those two to be sort of level behind. So Jason may be more interested in keeping even with David than he is with Austria at this stage.
And having Bartolone fall even one behind Italy at that point, that levels out the scoring as well.
I wouldn't have actually been shocked if there'd been a draw vote at this stage with that in mind, but obviously there isn't. Italy gets Sevastopol, so Italy is actually the only person growing right now. David, having built the army, he built it in London, which is fair enough. Means he doesn't get to convoy up to St. Petersburg yet, but I don't think... Actually, no, because there's no army around Norway, it's not actually possible to completely guarantee the capture of St. Petersburg. Andy can guess, and now that he's got Moscow there as a support, he can make that guess with a lot more accuracy. So, again, I look at this game and, yeah, Italy's getting Sevastopol, and so what? And nobody else is really doing anything or growing, and the game could draw now, it could draw at the start of next year, but if there's not going to be some sort of stab between E and F, I question why anyone would really want to continue this game.
You have to wonder if there is. I was going to.
You don't even have to wonder.
Nope. The moves Randy made, the two holds, Galicia, Romania not moving, and those that had to be. Let's just see how this turn plays out, but I think we're done. Like, there was a draw vote in the spring, it failed. There was another one in the fall, I think is well.
Yeah. Yeah, and if all that you're trading is one center from Italy to Russia, that doesn't change any 0 points on the score. Oh, I take that back. It is a point. It would be 5,000.
Well, 1,001 swap.
No, not even that, because Chris would have just been at 4,006, and
he's already ahead.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. It was already ahead, so they don't swap. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a 3-point differential now instead. They're 1,003 instead of 1,001. So
a 0.1% increase on your score.
Yeah. Although it's funny, the bigger tournaments, those little points at the end of those are the tiebreakers. So sometimes they're important. Maybe not this time.
Well,
I asked you last time, Liam. Right result?
I think the right placement. Although you have to wonder with the 300 extra points that the Sevastopol not being Austrian this year. As Randy could have made a pitch to Chris of, look, I want the extra points. I want to go up an extra dot. It wouldn't have changed Chris's final score. But it would have given Randy an extra 300 points. So whether that was incentive enough to try to push for just one more, or whether Chris had said, look, from a tournament perspective, no, just you can't, I won't support you if you go for it. So because again, look at Chris, that would have been some math right there. Chris and Randy next to each other. Chris would not have wanted Randy to be even 300 more ahead. So I think that was probably likely the conversation that happened there.
Ed Sullivan with 17% board tops in 2 games. You got to love that math. 1/6 of the visor. So that was the only game in round 2. For those who haven't been to Carnage, it's a large gaming convention. There's lots of other things to do, and so I know a lot of these players play other games. So maybe we lost a few Saturday morning to other events. But Saturday night is when the decisions come down. So let's take a look at where we are positionally. And board 1 just happens to be where we only see a 3rd, a 5th, and a 6th. Now everyone's still close enough where good results can happen, but I think we've got 3 Austria. We got Hunter in Italy, Andy again in Russia. Andy and Andy were next to each other with the bounce in Sweden in the last one. And Nathan Campbell. We haven't seen Nathan yet in this one. So that's the Eastern powers. So no real tension amongst those. But the West of Chris and Ed being next to each other for a 3rd straight game with Graham Woodring in Germany. Although it's a flip of round 1, right?
Yeah.
Because it was EF the other way around. So
I
think.
Go ahead, Cos.
You go first, right?
Well, I was just going to point out that in the normal Carnage scoring, that when we look at the scores, the 5th and 6th place were sort of under normal scoring would have been out of contention, I think, for a top here. But with the new 300 point, a runaway 17-16 could be huge.
Yep.
Yeah, I think Andy will be very, very happy with this selection. He's got 3 neighbours in the East, none of whom are in contention whatsoever. So he doesn't really have to worry about being ganged up on because of his tournament placing. Chris and Ed, only one of them can win this tournament, and an EF isn't going to be how they do it. So Graham is also going to be quite happy, I think, because there's, under pretty much all circumstances right now, there should be an EF war, and who Germany sides with will then decide who or which of them can go for the big top, because the sort of EF and then Western triple for a big score, that's not going to get you those. They're only 3,000 points behind, so it is reasonably plausible for them to catch up, but they're going to need a big top, and they're going to need Jason and David on the other board to suffer.
Yeah, which again, it's you've got players on both boards that are fighting for the top, so there will be those dynamics on both boards. There has been the cases where there's 2 boards and one of them has all the players competing for the top, which can make it even more exciting. So in this case, the suspension is going to be stretched out across both of these last two boards.
And the one thing else is I still haven't found the tournament rules, and if there is a drop round, that also, because players who didn't play in the morning and only get 2 results, it could be a big difference if you could drop that non-played, or with Bartoloni who had a lesser result last time pulls off another board top here, he shoots back up top. So lots of options, let's say. So all right, McCallus, let's get you kicking off this one.
All right, so we have yet again pretty standard opening moves from France, from England, from Germany. Yet again, we have Sevastopol to Romania, which continues to be the move of the day, or move of the month. And this time, Turkey is using it to pull the fleet out to the Aegean Sea, or at least they're going to Con in spring. We'll see whether they follow through in autumn. But yeah, I'd say pretty much everything is exactly what you'd expect, except from Sev to Rum, and maybe we're getting to the point where we have to start expecting Sev to Rum.
Well, now that move, especially in the spring, frees up a guaranteed Galicia if you want it. If you can work something out with the Turks in this case, unlikely to see that the Turks turn on the Russians and continue that fleet into the Mediterranean. So if Nathan does want to get the fleet out, working with Russia is a pretty good choice here, and that means Russia gets Galicia next year. Vienna finally does not hold and does not go to Piedmont. It goes to Kevin's favorite place for it, or Venice, I should say, and then goes up to Tyrolia. So there will be some interesting choices that Hunter gets to make next turn.
It's not my favorite place. My favorite place is Trieste.
Trieste is less chaotic. It's Tyrolia. There's more worry.
Kevin, I don't know if you've played with me on a board being of Italy and Trieste. There can be chaos, no problem there. So
you and I have played on a few boards, and there has been chaos. that I am certain.
Every board I've played with Liam has been chaos.
I'm pretty sure his nickname is the Chaos Agent, so not unsurprising.
The Ed, I think, is nicknaming the Delta variant, so we'll have to see how that goes.
I like that. We're on to the fall.
All right, so the fleet to Romania in spring was a bit of a feint, and this time it's coming back out of Romania. Seemingly with the Turkish agreement, though, as Turkey is supporting Ukraine down to Rum, so this could very much still be a juggernaut setting up where they've decided that the army in Rum is better, which for a juggernaut it is. Yeah, Italy doesn't choose a side, goes to Tyrolia and does nothing with it. Get to be influential still, I guess. And the West, everyone has agreed England can have Belgium and no bounce in Sweden. Yeah, nobody's really showing hands on any front at this stage. Pretty bog standard year all round.
Yeah.
While the army in Romania is better for the juggernaut, the fleet in the Black Sea is, unless there's a plan to get that fleet out, it's hard to see that Nathan is ecstatic about that positioning.
Trust me, I'm just gonna move it.
I think he's definitely not ecstatic if that's what he's building.
Mm-mm.
No, the I'll move it was exactly like you said, Kevin. Well, I didn't tell you where I was going to move it, but I did tell you I was going to move it.
I think the person who is ecstatic is Andy Bartoloni. The army build for Turkey is what you do in an IT, but what you're doing in an IT doesn't involve a fleet in the Aegean Sea. So this is a pretty strong signal for an 80, I'd say, from Turkey's perspective now. And yeah, Andy is rubbing his hands together in glee at that.
And I think both Andys, the other Andy and Hunter, I think Bartoloni has the choice of all three partners at this point. All of them are signaling, let's figure something out. There's very much flexibility, and there's no Bartoloni has no pressure whatsoever on him at the moment, unless those three decide very suddenly that, hey, actually, let's change this around. But I don't see that happen.
Yeah, and for Hunter, that's also really bad news because the threat of an AT is combined with France building Fleet Marseille, and this means that Hunter is worried on both fronts. And if there's an AT, there's a solid case for Andy forcing Tyrolia and going after Venice. But with France potentially coming down as well, yeah, Hunter's got a lot of issues already in winter of 1901, which is rare as Italy.
EF sticks together for phase 3. Let's see. Wow, Liam, there's more red than usual on this one.
Well, we'll start in the West. We made the assumption in the beginning that the EF was not the alliance that either of those two players needed, but it is the one that they deserve, apparently. Germany looking like he wants to go against Chris, so maybe Ed has made a mistake in his partner of choice here. England getting that second build, putting that army in. Normally an English army goes to Belgium to die. Right now it goes to Belgium to get another one into Holland. Having those two there. Although I will point out that Eddie did not move. Whether Chris is signaling to Andy in Russia, you know what? Don't worry about it. I'm not. I want another fleet there to support North Sea, but I'm not. I don't want to threaten you either. And that the fact that Sweden held and didn't do anything either could be indication of that.
And that's one way that Chris Campbell could win this game and potentially this tournament is you get the armies onto the continent early, take the German dots, and then stab Ed Sullivan if you've got a friendly Russia. And he's very much leaving himself in a very solid position to do exactly that. And I do, like you, I question why Ed would choose an EF at this stage, because he's the complete junior to England at this point in the game.
And I think that's why we don't see Ed going into the Mediterranean here. I think Ed has at least one half of his brain with his armies, the other half of his brain with his fleets. They're doing two different things. He could have gone in on Hunter at this point, looking at what's happening. but has decided that he's better off hedging his bets both ways. And I unfortunately think this is a case of Ed, where fence sitting is going to hurt him long term.
Ed's watching Bartolone's, score on the other side too. He doesn't want to put too much pressure on Hunter. So
correct. Yeah.
Kevin, what did a GNC do? Sorry.
A GN supported Tunis to Greece.
Oh, interesting.
Attempted to IAT because I'm
which would have succeeded. Which would have succeeded if Hunter had taken him up. But the AI decided. The AIR has decided that Turkey does not get to stick around much longer.
Maybe they are watching us more than we believe. We just had the Cowboys against us today on the NFL, so I think our ratings are going to be good.
Perfect.
So Russia now gets into Ankara. Italy does the Lepanto convoy from Tunis to Syria. Eddie Bassan will be very happy. Austria even goes Greece to Aegean. This is just all on board, kill Turkey as fast as possible. Andy doesn't want to play his hand against Russia or Italy yet, and Andy in Russia also doesn't want to play his hand, but he's sort of going to have to do it with this build, because if he builds in St. Petersburg, that is, hey Chris, sorry, I don't care that you haven't come for me, I am coming for you. If he builds somewhere else, it's is he going after Andy? I guess he could build even in Warsaw or go after Germany at this stage. So yeah, Andy Schoen has got some decisions to make this winter.
I think the whole the Hunter unfortunately doesn't have a decision, but I think he does have to wonder what's next for Austria here. Whether those two are in a good position, and Hunter doesn't have pressure. And I think you're right when you said that, Kevin, that Ed is thinking about Andy's score and not wanting any early pressure on Hunter to give him the freedom to make those decisions.
Yeah.
But also, Ed needs a big score in this game, and France doesn't get a big score in this game by invading Italy from this position.
No.
Yeah.
Sooner or later, he's got to pull the trigger on England. Whether he can do that effectively will decide his tournament.
Well, I was going to say, I'll put on reveal. I'm not going to switch the settings here, but Army London, right? If I'm Chris at this point, I'm going to say Army London's good for me offensively as it is, but Ed, don't even think about it.
Ariel Peñas Mendata. Sorry, I've completely messed their name up and forgotten it halfway through a sentence. But they would say Army Liverpool right now, and I would be inclined to actually agree.
Because I think you build that army with the intention of not letting it leave the island. If you go Army London, you might move it to Wales, or to York. That way it's still on the island, but I can convoy it next in the fall if I want to. You can get the same effect by building in Liverpool with the added message of don't even think about it.
Oops, wrong button. Whoa!
Well, this opens the door for Ed.
This definitely does. This is an interesting. And
you got your St. Petersburg, just the wrong side.
Yeah, for Chris, this is as good as it could have got from Russia, I think. So Chris not going after Norwegian Sea, not putting pressure on Andy, he has been rewarded on that front. And now it's going to be interesting to see what happens on the EF front, because if Chris can take another couple of German dots this year with Ed not stabbing him, Chris is in a really, really good position. And on the flip side, Ed will know that, and Ed will go, is there going to be a better time to stab them right now? And the answer is almost certainly going to be no, given that Russian build.
No, I think Ed's window of opportunity, if it's not fully shut, it is pushing down on his fingertips right now.
Yep.
Well, doesn't mean he's not going to try for it, though.
Nope. He's guaranteed himself Liverpool. Realized Hunter's not coming. Ed doesn't have any pressure elsewhere. And it looks like they're going to the alliance structure that we had thought was of a German working with one of those two is now finally at least somewhat come to fruition. let's say thank you to Nathan Campbell, knocked out in the spring with both units being destroyed. Now, if somebody could make a mistake and walk out and we see a rebuild, I have seen that before. In fact, I myself have survived as a turkey with having Serbia as my unit, as no unit, but still holding on to Serbia. So I didn't get to rebuild, but I still held it for a year.
In 1903?
4 probably. So it's very fun negotiating with no units and no possibility for units.
I feel like Chris going to Skagerrak here and going anti-Russian is a mistake. I just don't see why that was the move that you wanted to take at this stage of the game. I'd also be very, very worried if I'm Andy Shiner right now. The fact that Andy Bartoloni has daisy-chained all those armies down that way, instead of going to the centre of the board, instead of going towards Italy, I would not be at all shocked to see an AI attack on Ankara and an Austrian attack on Romania right now. Romania is indefensible. There's 3 armies next to it. Ankara is not, but this is very strong AI vibes now from this position because Austria has moved their armies in a way that can only really threaten Russia.
Yeah, let's go right there because that's the. Oh well.
Well, that is a move that Ed has made that I think right now Chris Campbell is not happy to see it. The convoy to Liverpool is probably the strongest move Ed has made this tournament. He fully trusts his ally in Graham Woodring, or feels that it doesn't matter if you trust him or not. This is the result. These are the moves he has to make, regardless of what anybody else on the board is doing. Belgium was a guarantee with Denmark cutting north and Helgoland cutting Holland, so he had Belgium in the bag as well. Meanwhile, Chris vacating the mainland, coming back to the island, rearranging his fleets, Norwegian Clyde. Chris saw this coming. Obviously after Ed had moved where his fleets were, and has told Andy that do whatever you want with your units. Ed is my number one target, and Andy has filled some of that void. Now it does look like there was a stab in the east, but not the one that we expected. It looks like the winter green has showed itself. And congratulations, Nathan Campbell, you will build next year. You will build.
Hopefully, he didn't walk down the room to the other gaming hallway.
Let's see what happens there. You know what? You have to ask for Andy. Why not take Romania in this position? What's the value of the orders you just issued? Whether it was made explicitly clear what was going to happen, but even still, take Romania. Why would Italy give you Smyrna here? Unless they thought that Russia was going to support him in, I think this was Andy Shiner making the decision between the two. They both, Italy and Austria, pitched a stab, and I think Russia made the correct choice in working with Italy in this case.
The problem is, the more I look at this turn, the less it makes sense to me in the east. Andy Scheider has stabbed Austria but gone to Silesia instead of Galicia. Hunter Catcher has stabbed Austria but gone to Aegean Sea rather than to the wide open Greece. There's a world this could be some sort of arranged deal where Andy now rebuilds that army Vienna. They've put 2 on Munich surreptitiously, and actually this is an air that's about to turn around and go the other way. Just as these are really inefficient stab orders from all of them.
Which could indicate the 15 minutes. It's just not enough time to sort things out, and because there was a better way to, if that was the case, there was a better way to figure out the whole Smyrna. That again, not that one unit there's 4 units around it. And, again, Nathan builds, but we'll see how long that lasts.
The bigger issue is that if this is a stab on Andy Bartoloni, you generally don't want to stab someone so that they build anyway, which is essentially what's happened.
And is this Andy's got a lot of armies. Is this if he builds an army in Trieste and Hunter builds a fleet, then Venice is his. But I think if you're Hunter here, you have to build an army, right? If this was a real step, if this was a real let's get Andy, but if it's arranged, it's a fleet, right?
Yeah. Or like the problem is that building a fleet just instantly tells Ed Sullivan that it's arranged. So you have to then decide whether you want to give that signal away or not. And if there's some sort of deal between Hunter and Ed, where Ed is going to build army Paris, fleet Brest, Hunter could build an army, go to Piedmont, and walk into Marseille for free in that sort of world.
Yeah.
All right, guys, you're on the committee of what does England pull? Give me your best options. I'm England here. What am I pulling? Tell me.
There's no good options.
The only good one is the army in Ruhr. That's the only good. There's no argument to keep that on the board. Yeah. I think Norway's lost. I think at this point, anyways, if they want it, they'll have it. To be fair,
all Yorkshire's the most useful unit.
Yorkshire is essential. Now, looking at the German position or the Russian position against the Germans, if Chris can convince Graham to stop helping Ed, like what does Graham get out of helping Ed here? Not much anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so Chris could. There is an argument to keep that army around to help Graham against Ed or against Andy and offer that as a defensive unit. So we could see an argument to keep both those armies, but that's more of a janissary move than a save my own bacon move.
I wouldn't have pulled North. I'd have pulled Norwegian, but fair.
Yeah, I'd probably pull Clyde and kept North. I might have pulled Clyde and Norwegian and tried to cut a deal with Russia, where Russia gets Norway, but you get Sweden, but Russia gets Denmark and that sort of thing. +2, -1 for Russia. Yeah, this is just I'm going to try and do whatever I can to punish Ed Sullivan, and that's the only goal.
Yeah, and we will note that Hunter built an army, so I think
he's got that potential walk to Marseille as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think we see now. There's an argument for Ed to being in Burgundy at the end of this, or attempting to be in this, or even in Gascony. Go for another convoy. Why not? Right. That way, it's defensive and offensive. If Italy is not in Piedmont, he can convoy that thing out of there. If it is, well, then he keeps it around. So.
Yeah, I think Gascony would absolutely be the correct move for Paris right now.
Yeah. What do we got? I think this one is Liam. Give me spring 1904. The order is not Gascony. It is Burgundy.
Well, it's not Gascony, but it is Burgundy. Has a similar defensive effect. Although with triple support, you have to wonder what. I guess there was no other uses for those two armies, anyways. So, we do see Hunter end up in Piedmont. So I think whether that was some, you have to imagine that he knew Andy was not going to attack him at that place, or felt very confident in that. So I think Ed is glad he went to Burgundy. We do see some interesting borders happening in the east. There's a triple bounce, Austria bouncing in Bulgaria and Romania. There was he did cover Greece, although how necessary that covering of Greece was here versus cutting Constantinople to attempt to guarantee that Romanian move is neither here nor there, I think. But I think I think Andy is now in a very vulnerable position. He is all of his units are together and has some synergy, but there's not much for them to do anymore, other than try to hold on.
Russia has an issue though, because Russia has to cover Sevastopol right now, and
that fleet has to cover it. Yeah,
that actually really affects his position. And again, Hunter has supported Russia to Bulgaria, but not gone for Greece. This AI war it's still really unconvincing that it's actually a real war, because now the problem that Hunter's got is if he does anything against Austria, Austria could be in the Ionian Sea, which is dreadful for Hunter. So this to me looks like Andy Bartoloni basically trying to maneuver Italy into a position where attacking Russia is the only sensible move, and it's not ideal for Hunter to do that yet because Con and Smyrna are sort of the wrong way around. You'd want the army and the fleet flipped, but there's the possibility of a convoy swap between them this turn, and Russia losing Rum or Sev and also losing Gao. There's a lot of problems for Andy Shiner as well in the south, and given that the north is going really, really well for him, I think he made the correct decision to disengage with Graham. There was no benefit whatsoever to a GR war at this stage. Hunter might be looking at that and going, yeah, maybe I don't want to help Russia because Russia could grow very big very quickly if this is a wintergreen.
And Hunter is feeling less and less pressure each year. Those French units have gone north. I think that Germany now taking the North Sea, that really does spell the end of the British. And now finally gives Graham a bit of skin in the game for getting something out of it.
That was going to be my question, Liam, is what's Graham going to do now? He's like, all of it, everyone left him. Ed's coming towards him. Like, what's this negotiation going to start? If you're Graham, what are you saying to Ed right now?
If I'm Graham, I'm telling Ed to do something with those armies that isn't come up against me. Whether that's go down to Marseille, whether that's go to the island, whether that's, hey, let's convoy Belgium to Eddie or Norway or something. Get away from me. I think is basically what Graham would have to be telling Ed right now. Especially because that unit in Burgundy, get it there for support. I will point out that Berlin did not support Munich in this case. None of those armies didn't have a lot of support cohesion. There could have been it could have been tragic if there was some coordination between the Andes against Graham there. But
they just stabbed each other.
Clearly, the board.
It could also have been.
Was,
it could also have been the sandboxer just didn't bother putting them in because if the Russian or the Austrian moves had already been entered, then there was no threat to Munich, so you don't need to bother when the German gets read out.
All right. Yep.
And so there's your answer of what does Graham get out of it. Chris even thinks Graham deserves a build.
If I'm Graham, I really I'm obviously taking London as soon as it's offered to me, but I do question why I would want to work with Ed in this position that Ed has got. You've got a potentially friendly Russia at this point, and that's probably who I'd be pinning my hopes on allying with, because there's no world where working with Ed Sullivan for Germany doesn't get you gutted from behind by Ed Sullivan in this sort of scenario.
Yeah, because all he leaves open is Berlin for a build. That's tough.
It'll be an army. Like, a fleet is crazy if you go off Sweden at this stage of the game.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking for anti if he turns anti-French. But if they could split it up, because that here. Can I get to? All right. I'll just go straight to adjustments.
Well, let's finally say thank you to Nathan Campbell.
Didn't go to Sev though, but Mikala said, just the force of having to go there.
Yeah. Oh, the defensive moves though by
Andy.
By Andy,
really solid.
Yeah, very solid. Not a lot of move. That move to Trieste. Do we read that as arranged, even though Piedmont went to Tyrolia? Is that
I'm struggling to see at this point that this isn't an AI war. It's just not been a very efficiently prosecuted one. But I do wonder if Hunter's real ally is Ed rather than Andy.
At this point, after that turn, if it's not Ed, they need to be talking. Ionian goes to the Adriatic here. Hunter still has fleet supremacy in the Mediterranean, especially if Andy Shiner is on board with the Italian, which looks like he is. So I would think that Bartoloni is, while his units are in as reasonable of a position as you could have them, I'm not happy with where things stand.
Winter 04, final round, 1904 prediction time. Liam, is Ed your guy?
I think that the positioning of this, Ed, as he's the only one that I see that has a path that is beyond their current score. Now I think Graham could grow one or two, but I struggle to see from where and for how long he could hold it unless people give up and draw. I think if the game grinds out longer, I think Graham's not in a very good spot between the Wintergreen and Ed. So I think Andy's also in a bit of a not necessarily a vulnerable position, but I think his growth. If Andy grows, Ed grows, and I think Ed could count on that, especially if he's got a good relationship with Hunter.
Yeah, I can see Hunter getting some decent growth out of this game. I think if he goes fully into Austria at this stage and Russia and Austria keep fighting, sooner or later he's going to get a couple of dots out of it. It's not enough. Like the problem is that tournament-wise, Hunter has no real reason to care. Russia has no real reason to care, and these are bad for Ed Sullivan. Like Ed Sullivan wants other people than him to have reasons to keep this game going so that he can get a bigger score. And I look at this. Andy Bartoloni is the only other person. Like Chris is out of it, and so Andy Bartoloni is the only other person with sort of a tournament reason to keep playing this game. And the problem for Ed is that Andy Bartoloni is under attack from two neighbors and therefore doesn't have a good reason to keep this game going. And like that actually makes me think that grand strategically, Ed has to do something to help Andy, not to actually do it in a way that lets Andy top the board and win the tournament, but to give Andy a reason to keep playing. Because as soon as Austria, Russia, and Italy have no reason to keep this game being played, that just shuts all the doors for Ed. So he needs someone other than him to have reason to keep playing this game for him to get a better score.
Yeah, I agree. So do we see Ed start making his way down? I think is the only. Well, we don't.
I love waiting for those hypotheticals and then bam, slam down.
The flip side is that you can do it this way and go after Russia and give Andy some hope that
the other side,
that he can get something that way. And he's given Graham room to go after Russia, which might give Bartoloni some hope in that regard as well. So there are reasons to do this tournament wise, and I quite like this from Ed in getting some sort of coalition against Russia. It's good news for Andy, only if Hunter doesn't dominate him beforehand, and Hunter's finally got somewhere in Bulgaria and looks like he's going to be getting Greece as well. So this may still be too little too late for Ed, I think. And
I think if I'm Andy Shiner, I'm loving the way that Hunter is moving, because it's giving full, a slight move into Smyrna or a force into Khan, a nice little convoy from Rum to Khan here if you wanted to. Andy's losing units, he's losing pressure.
Why wouldn't you just walk Black to Khan and Ank to Smyrna at this point? Like that's the.
Although we will see Graham Woodring putting in some pressure in Warsaw right here, and I think that could be why Andy does not turn on his ally.
Yeah.
I think Andy should be making a very credible case to Hunter that he should be given one of those dots in the south.
100%.
Yeah, because Sweden's under pressure. Yeah, there's a lot of.
Ooh.
Good defense again. Does the convoy you suggest?
So Ed somehow gets Russian support into Edinburgh, but does nothing else with the rest of his units, which should have allowed Andy to keep Sweden. But for whatever reason, he either didn't trust Ed, or maybe he expected support into Denmark that Ed didn't give. But that means that Graham actually does get Sweden, which I, again, question whether that's beneficial to Ed. Andy Bartoloni has collapsed. His position in this tournament is over at this stage, and Hunter gets free builds out of it, does not give a build to Russia. looks like Russia tried to get Serbia, and that's maybe what Hunter says. Hey, hey, but why take one of mine? I'll put you into Serbia, even though it was not at all guaranteed. And in fact, I see no reason for Greece to have done anything other than tap Bulgaria in that position. So that's a bit of a weighted coin in favor of Hunter, that the odds would go in his favor on that regard. So Hunter goes +3, Ed goes +1. Hunter, I think, takes the lead of the game.
I think we see game over here, because why wouldn't Ed have supported North? North Sea held. So whether that was support, but he could have supported Clyde to Eddie, and he didn't.
And also, that year went so well for Hunter. Andy is going to disband, and I would be shocked if he disbanded something that wasn't one of Angkor Black at this point in the game. The mechanism for stopping Hunter Catcher topping this board is very rapidly disappearing.
Yes. Ed's fleets are too far in the north. You can only get them. That's the trouble with the Mid-Atlantic, is it's a slow funnel to get down, and he's not able to build in Marseille. So again, building a fleet Brest, it's still a slow cycle. So I think we could see a game over on this next turn.
Yeah, Ankara goes off the board, and you just that by itself, you go, all right, who's stopping Hunter? And I think he's built his army and his fleet the wrong way around, because you probably wanted to convoy to Albania right now, but it also probably doesn't really matter.
No orders.
There we go.
Yeah, that's it. All right, so we put game over here. That'll get it to game over.
And that really rapidly turned to Hunter. I think when we were saying who do you want to be, we were looking at Ed, we were looking at Andy, and nobody said Hunter. And I think the position he was in, he was a bit spread out, but he very quickly turned what we would have thought a spread out position into look, all of his units are touching. There's a line from Bulgaria all the way to Trieste wrapping around. So he's done a very good job of centralizing and getting the centers there.
Yeah, because said, I think you said Hunter has potential for growth. I didn't think you meant next year and getting 3, but
he got all the guesses tactically against Andy Bartoloni, but he also got that huge diplomatic win of not having to give Andy Shiner one of Constantinople or Smyrna, because that would have completely changed this position. He wouldn't be lone topping, he'd be joint topping, but Andy wouldn't have had a disband, which means that unit stays on the map, which means there's just a solid mechanism for stopping Hunter still. As soon as Andy Shiner had to disband this year, there was no longer a mechanism for stopping Hunter, because there was no way that Andy would disband anything other than one of them. The position was such that he had to disband one in the south, which is bad for Ed, because it meant that nothing could stop Hunter. And you look at that North Sea holding, I think if Ed was trying to win the tournament, he probably should have done something anti-German that turn to keep Andy Shiner alive. And
support Sweden to Denmark, take Holland, and North Sea could have been used for a few different ways there. Position your fleets against London, go down to Ed. I think had at this turn had decided that this was the best he was going to do.
Yeah. Or he thought he was getting to 8-8. It turns out to be 9-8. And now he realizes, well, crap, even at 9-8, I can't do anything. So
yeah.
And it started in spring when Hunter got all the guesses on Andy Bartoloni, and then it happened again in autumn, and it was too devastating a position for Hunter at that point.
So we're going to assume all scores count, because I'm not going to try and do the breakdown of who got what and when. But right now, still on the board to play board 2, we're going to have Jason, David, and Randy. 7,000 for Randy.
Yeah.
Well, Randy's in it.
Especially with the 3, if he's at 7,000, that means he's at 7,300.
Yep. Yeah. And even Brad. So Brad, with a 2-center gap, gets to 13,608.
I mean, the Brad's problem is that he needs to top the game and have Jason, David, and Randy come in the bottom 3 positions. Basically, I guess Randy could be slightly higher, but for Brad, that's a real long shot. For Randy, that's very doable because even second place can actually get him to 14,000 if Jason and David have bad games.
Well, and here these guys are next to each other, so that helps. Actually, all 3 of them are next to each other.
So at least one of them is getting a poor score.
Yep. Well, but even in the sense that we were saying, Brad needs to control his neighbors. If you can get 2 eliminations out of there, that knocks out 2 of the prize. The problem with Jason being in Austria, you can't control all 3. So
no. Jason Massbom will be the one who's very, very happy with this board draw.
Yep.
Yeah, and I believe that's a father-son duo, right? Carl Ellis and Evan Ellis, that's correct?
That is correct. And Robert Roos making his first appearance here on Saturday night. So Robert is a very fun player. He's a good diplomat, not terribly strong tactics, but is Liam kind of like you in the sense that comes up with some fun ideas to try and play. So we'll see. We'll see what kind of inspiration he brings to the board. All right, Liam, let's get you in the odds this year and McCallus in the even.
All right. Fairly, actually, I was going to say fairly standard opening, except there is a Warsaw to Silesia, which we have not seen and do not see very often.
Delta variant.
So Robert Roos, just like you said, doing something a little bit different. You know, there was that DMZ in Galicia that was arranged with Jason. I think Jason is somebody who's very willing to trust somebody. You know, whether Jason knew that was happening or whether he thought Robert was going north. You know, the DMZ is a DMZ. But we do see Sevastopol in Romania. I think that's been every board, correct? That has happened. Although last board it left and. It shifted, but still, it is notable that it is there again.
I would say Jason almost certainly knew about this because David Miller is his biggest rival for the winner of this tournament. And so if Robert has come to him and gone, "Hey, I might go to Silesia," Jason has gone, "Yep, I'll DMZ Galicia." That's just an instant yes from Jason Maskell in this game because David Miller's tournament hopes have already taken a pretty big knock just from this happening because this is a really rough one for Germany to defend. The problem is it's rarely good for Russia either, which again Jason doesn't care about, and he's gone defensively, covered Trieste in case Italy came after him. Sure, this is great news for Jason Massbom at the start of this game, but also quite good news for Randy, as a Germany and a Russia that fight each other without getting much out of it is usually very good news for England.
It is also good news for Brad Blitzstein. You'll notice, him being in Burgundy. If David has to worry about Holland, Munich, Berlin, there's a lot of guesses that David has to make, and Brad might be saying to himself, Munich looks more open than it's ever been. So.
I mean, there's a world where Russia and France work together to force Munich or something, which is that's just a hey, David, we don't want you to win this tournament. That would be brutal.
We could easily see a blue Munich. That Gulf of Bothnia fleet could go down to Baltic and not worry about Sweden. Oh well, again, proven wrong on all counts. I think, Michaelis. Everything went the other way.
Silesia to Prussia is not what I expected.
That's not what I had thought would have happened there. Same with Ukraine to Moscow. No support. Robert was confident in his in the fleet Romania. A little bit of conflict with Bulgaria going to Greece, and Smyrna following into Khan. A bounce in Belgium. I think that might have been Is that the first Belgian bounce we've seen like this? I feel like Belgium's been taken every year, I think. And this is David has clawed his way from the jaws of something that could have been very deadly, and now we'll build 2 and is in a pretty good position. I mean, although it will be 2 armies, there's an argument for Fleet Berlin, but I think with where that Russian unit is, it will be almost
So-
essential.
Yeah, I mean the lack of a bounce in Sweden, like it suggests that there's some sort of negotiation between Germany and Russia, and that's why Russia didn't go to Berlin. But Silesia to Prussia is also not remotely friendly to Germany, and this may be that Robert. I don't know why you wouldn't take that guess, because you'd always be able to build Warsaw and go to Prussia anyway. But
Yeah.
there is a tactical argument for David not bouncing Sweden despite not making up, because that's the scenario where Germany goes to Sweden and Russia doesn't bother bouncing them and goes to Baltic Sea, and all of a sudden David's position is, instead of being bad, his position is catastrophic if that happens. So that may be that what he was worried about. And like from the east, this Russia just walking everything away from there smells very, very ratty. And you could very easily see Russia build Army Warsaw, Fleet St. Petersburg, and go after both England and Germany. But that's not the case.
Again, we I think you and I both speak too soon with some of these. Kevin is getting ready to play spoiler to all of our predictions here.
That's the fun of being behind the scenes.
Again, another one that I made. I figured David would put down two armies, but he does build the Fleet Berlin. It's important to have unit flexibility, and I think he sees that it's his only opportunity at this point.
Yeah, but two armies is much better on defense, but David Miller doesn't win this tournament playing defense. So I think you needed a fleet. If he's going to win this tournament, he needed a fleet so he could actually grow at some point. So I like that build.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Like you said, you have to make the moves that you have to make, not the moves that other people are forcing you to make if you want to win.
I mean, Kevin is directing us to London and Brest, saying potential EF war. My eyes are more drawn to what on earth just happened in the Med.
Italy, yes.
Italy, Army Rome, Turkey, Army Smyrna. Like those are as pro IT moves as you can possibly get, which sounds great, except Italy is convoy to Tunis and Turkey is in Aegean rather than Black Sea, which are the complete opposite of IT moves. So as a foremost cheerleader of an IT, I look at this and go, this is a dreadful position to IT from. But also the AR is so strong, maybe they have no choice, and maybe they realize that after autumn.
Father-son telepathy. That's what I'm saying.
When we have another fleet in Sevastopol as well, so I think that setup is looking maybe a little regretful this year. I think Austria and Russia, I think, make Jason and Robert make a pretty good pair from this position. And they do. Although the IT does make an interesting choice of convoying Smyrna to Greece. Yeah,
so they get something in. Jason possibly saw it coming. He's made the attack in the correct way he's not bothered defending Greece. I'm guessing like the problem with Rome and Smyrna was that it was an IT, like it just signaled that they must be working together. So Jason would have seen that coming, and he's therefore decided to put Greece up into Bulgaria, and correct play, good play by him. It's less good news for him that Germany and Russia have now disengaged, or at least one of them has. Those armies coming back from Russia mean that at some point he can stab Jason, and Jason probably really liked him just sitting there containing David Miller. That was great news for Jason.
Yeah.
But there is an EF war. London goes to the English Channel. Good news again for David Miller. Yeah, after how bad spring of 1901 went for David Miller, this has very rapidly turned around into a position where he's in a pretty solid spot, and building that fleet rather than a defensive army is going to be rewarded. He's probably going to get Sweden right now.
Yeah,
no indications, Liam, of Germany pairing with either England or France. Yeah, that's support to Belgium, but that's not.
It could easily be there to die for this position. I think with how it's set up in there, I wouldn't be surprised to see Mid-Atlantic trying to make a play to Irish or North Atlantic, with Brest going to MAO with kind of covering the chain to get some positioning. Which could open up Belgium for an attack. But I'm more interested in the from this position, it looks like Khan supported Bulgaria, but Bulgaria actually tried to cut Serbia, so that support was going to. So I think they actually could have guaranteed holding on to um, Bulgaria if all three supports held and Tunis was the convoy. So I think that there's some tactical choices that could have been made differently in the south that would have resulted. I mean, there's obviously there's different ways to do it, but I think that that army in Tunis, I think is the one you want the one you want to make any moves that aren't going to open you up. You know, the moving to Armenia, for example, this year from Smyrna would have given you again a lot more flexibility of defense and not opened yourselves up. So I think down in the south, the AR are going to have gotten the better of the tactical decisions this turn.
Yeah, I think the flip side is that yes, they could have held Bulgaria in spring doing all the supports, but with Sev coming into Black Sea unopposed, you couldn't have held it for another turn. So it may make more sense to do just something a bit different. Although with that in mind, I might have considered pulling Con to Ankara so that you don't get piffed in spring and you have an easy time defending from that Black Sea fleet and being able to do something aggressive on ball.
Yeah.
That is everything coming up AR as much as it possibly could. So Jason recaptures Greece. Russia gets Constantinople because Turkey has tried to pull back. A GNC should not have been doing that. That's, I guess, if you're capturing angst, you had to.
They're failed convoy. Two failed convoys. Ionian and Aegean would have been, because Greece went to Smyrna, failed. Tunis went to Apulia, failed. Those were both failed convoys.
Yep, that's pretty rough. And
the
big swing in the favor of AR in that regard.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, in the West, David Miller has got, you know what, my path to winning this tournament is attacking everybody. So he goes into Belgium at the expense of France. He goes into Sweden at the expense of Russia. But his brief detente with Russia is over because Russia comes back to Silesia. And I guess he's just trying to keep pace with the AR. And so there was no world where he wouldn't take Sweden, but he's gone for France and hope that that's a better route forward. I wouldn't be shocked to see him flip again and turn on England and now work with France. We'll see what he does from this position, but he's building two, probably he's definitely building an army Munich, credible case for a fleet keel and going after England, I think.
Yeah, I think you could go either way with that. I mean, again, like you said, you don't win that. David will not win playing defensively, and putting that army keel effectively means David has now locked in and any flexibility handed over to Randy to make flips and make changes. But the fleet forces Randy to keep his guard up and try to diplomatically work with David as opposed to tactically.
And Brad, if he builds the fleet to go against England, the army in Munich, that's three armies on France. Brad's going to be tentative on that plan, but I guess Brad's got to do something too. So I like the catalysts in the West at this point.
The issue is how much this capture of Belgium has damaged his relations with Brad, because if Brad is just in a vengeant mood right now, he can just tank it for David, just put Jason into Munich or something. And from like Burgundy being a hostile unit to Germany right now would be a big issue, because even though Tyrolia looks like it's going after Italy, Tyrolia is David's biggest rival for the winner of this tournament. So Jason is by default hostile to David Miller. Even while he's going after Italy, he's still hostile to David Miller. If an opportunity is there to go after Munich instead, he's gonna take that, because going after Karl does nothing. Karl isn't even a threat to him in this position. He's a free army Italy that is trapped in the wrong place, can't actually do anything effective against him. So why go after Italy if the option is there to go after Germany instead? I think Jason builds Army Vienna. I can see him going to Bohemia. If Jason has a lockstep ally in Russia, which it appears he does, Jason is in prime position to win this tournament. David just doesn't have that ally in the same way. And the one person he could work with against France is England, who has their own reasons for not wanting David to do well in this game.
Yeah, that Liam, I was gonna say I usually put it on you guys to say, tell me how you would negotiate this next turn. And I'll ask myself that same question for David. If I'm David going to Brad, I'm saying, look, I'm in a world of hurt. You're going to build what, Army Paris or Fleet Marseille. So if we're going after England, that's not useful to have Fleet Marseille. Fleet Kiel's more effective there. If David decides to put down 2 armies here because of the potential army build in Vienna, which will be in Bohemia, which is then 3 on Munich, I need that extra army there. I'm going in and apologizing, saying, I know I promised you this, or I know I gave you this. I just felt I needed it more, and we didn't have any time to negotiate it later on. I'm going in apologetic and asking for forgiveness.
And I think that makes no sense, because England is not, Randy's not in a position to help David, which it looks like David has decided he's going to help himself in the center of the board with that army build. It's so tempting. You look at this position and to not build the army, that could just spell the end of your game. So it's very understandable why it's built that way.
It is, but his growth it's very difficult to see him growing faster than the East, because the East still have those couple of Turkish dots that are sat there waiting to be taken. I guess Jason hasn't built in Vienna, which is good news for David, but it's still a pretty tough spot.
Although without the Italian help, I will point out those Turkish dots are actually going to be quite difficult to navigate from this position. If Italy is still on side with Turkey, it won't be this year that they go. They will still be there another year.
Father-son rivalry. First, we got the telepathy. Nope, no rivalry. Getting back home.
Yeah.
Liam, what do you got here?
Well, we'll start in the north. That Russian fleet has been pipped. Looks like not too much from England. I think the bounce in St. Petersburg, North Sea making no effort to do anything is interesting. As in not following to Norway in case he got St. Petersburg. The slim chance, but you never not want to cover that. If that's what's happening, and same thing with the cut of. Attempted to cut Picardy. This is Randy and David still working together, clearly, although I think David taking out Skagerrak might mean a little bit more. And I think he's in a spot to turn on Randy if he wants to. Unless that looks like, hey, I just got rid of the Russian fleet, now we can be back on side. You can see he can sell that any way he wants to. But he does get rid of that hostile Burgundy army at the cost of losing Belgium. So that there's some unfortunate issues there. Back in the East, I think it was a bit of a tough spot to be in, I think, for Turkey, but making the best they can. Armenia is a nice spot to be because now there's a lot of guesses going on. And Jason just moving. Now we will note that Tyrolia is still there. Could still cause some grief for David. A tap on Munich means that Robert gets Berlin in the fall here. So Jason staying in a position to keep David in check. I think after this turn, it would behoove Jason, I think, to give David a little bit of love in Munich.
I see no reason right now why Jason Masbon should not be tapping Munich and making sure Berlin falls. I think England, this is not the way to go after Picardy. Like the way to tap Picardy there would have been to convoy across and have North Sea defend English Channel, and then you can't get out of position like this. There's no downside to that move, and you don't have a unit in North Sea sat there doing nothing. And yes, Germany's got into Burgundy, but they're not likely to get anything from Burgundy. They're going to have to go back to Belgium. The momentum's not really in the favour of EG at this stage. And that's why I thought that David would build a fleet and go after England. Just with a hostile Russia and a probably hostile Austria, you just aren't going to have time to put the armies through into France in the way that you have to if you're taking France out as Germany. And this just keeps coming up in favour of Jason for the tournament. And it's good news for Russia in terms of the game. And Jason can win this tournament without topping this board. He doesn't have to top this board. He just has to beat David and not be massively beaten by Randy or Brad.
I'll put the one caveat here, and we were hopefully in our last broadcast at Weasel Moo, we tried to show a little bit of the player dynamics. And while the position on the board might say one thing, we have no idea, what's being said amongst the players, what has riled someone up. So here's my pitch. If you haven't made it out, and I forgot to mention this earlier, so for the Europeans who might be catching this, we've got Euro DipCon coming up at the end of November. I believe it was 24th through 26th in Paris. So if you aren't far of a train ride or a quick plane ride, or just nearby, I don't know any of the details on it, but I know it's on one of the servers and on the let's see if I get the banner on the bottom too. We'll say this for a little bit. So that's coming up. There's something like, with the virtual, when we play on Discord or we play Gunboat and things like that, the position drives things, but we just don't know what's being said in the room. So let's take that with what we have here. I actually want to reveal on this one, because we're talking about the position. Anything we saw on that last turn diplomatically, thinking and any alliance comes out of the West in this position, Liam?
I mean, the West in particular is in a tough spot. David, I think doesn't. You can make an argument that him and Randy have been working together, but with the way that things are positioned, I think David doesn't have a lot of friends at the moment. None in the East. Brad maybe feeling. Potentially could potentially see David as a path, because he does by himself. He has nobody right now. Brad is alone, and I think it's he's in a position that could help both of them now that he's in there. We could see a fun little convoy or something happening with working with Randy, but I think that there's nobody is super thrilled in the West with any of their neighbors at this point.
Yeah,
I think that Brad has a very solid case for tapping North Sea to guarantee David Norway and saying, I'll keep Belgium, you get Norway. And David may agree or may just take Belgium back as well. But David, the EG are not going to beat France in this game. So David has got to be looking at Norway right now, and he's got to be looking at Berlin, the fact he's probably losing it, and going, I need to get something out of this.
Yeah, just at some point, I got to say, we know Jason is in the contention too. At some point, we got to race. We're not going to beat him. We got to race him. And my best bet is at this point, maybe EF. I don't know. I'm just saying that might be the conversation that comes up when you're feeling frustrated. So there was a lot of Daniel Tiger talk for in the DBN chat room this week. So
a whole lot of red in the West, which sort of says the whole story of the West of this game so far.
Yeah.
We'll stay in the West, and there was an offer to, hey, take Belgium back, but I think none of those three coordinated any of that. France going after England, Germany going after England, Germany going after France. The move to Gascony was probably not very, very nice. The move to taking Belgium while risking Munich. I'll mind you, they could have gone. That could have changed the other way. So David, the West, they all it's that three-way standoff, the quick draw. They're all pointing at each other, two guns in their hands, and meanwhile the AR is looking at them and saying, "Well, we're just going to keep doing what we're doing," which actually Turkey looks like has said, "Thanks, I'll see you later," and just not attempt to make a defense there. So I think that Russia getting a build, Austria getting a build, Russia getting two builds because of Berlin, Italy getting into a good defensive position from from the northern side, but now the Mediterranean with those 3 fleets are wide open. And I will point out that Trieste is now open for a build. So will we see a fleet? Jason, if there's anybody who will put a fleet in Trieste, it's you. So
I mean, it's the right build, and the fact that he's self-bounced in Trieste, it's very clear that that's exactly what he wants to do right now. Yeah, Italy going to Adriatic is really nice if you have 2 fleets and can still be in Ionian Sea. The fact that Italy doesn't have that extra fleet, it's just a problem.
Well, that's that very first build, that the army in Rome. What's it done? Nothing. And even in its position, you could be in Venice and Piedmont still and defend it just as well. And that extra fleet, like you said, if I had one more fleet on board, I'd be happy. But in this position, it's tough.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting David's pulled Berlin off the map. He does have a rebuild. So he's retaken Belgium, put Norway there. I question any scenario where he's actually going to build Fleet Kiel, but I guess it's just nice to have the option to think about it for slightly longer.
Yeah, it gives you some time to think, and and makes an argument to the Russian that says, look, if you want to grow this, don't grow through me. Let's go over the top. I'll help you over the top. And but like you said, it could just be to keep people guessing more so than anything.
I think David's problem is that Robert has no reason not to work with Germany, because as I said, Jason doesn't need to top the board. So Jason will be quite happy for Robert to top the board and Jason to just sail along in second place and win the tournament.
I think even third place would probably get it to him.
As long as he's not behind David, yeah.
Now, to be fair, they won't know the results of the first game at this point, so I already can picture players from both boards checking out what's happening, and this time in the last board was anybody's game. Nobody was, I think, in this position thinking Hunter was taking it. So I think there's some definite. It'll be down to the last year when that game drew. This game will drop depending on the setup. So
Fleet North Coast is fun.
Yeah,
Makes
Fleet
sense.
North Coast is interesting.
I'm actually quite interested by Army Sev. I think there was a really credible case for Russia to waive that build and try and get another build in St. Petersburg next year. It's unlikely they're going to get an extra build unless they're stabbing Austria. So it's going to be difficult to build an extra fleet up north in the foreseeable future. But it's not necessarily true, because Vienna and Warsaw could go into Silesia, Bohemia at this point, and really charge into David's centres. And the problem that David has as France builds another army in Marseille, I've really struggled to see after that attack on Gascony, David finding a way to disengage with Brad. I think he can probably assume that Brad is just going to stay hostile, and that just means Munich is going to be under terrible threat forever.
Yeah. David's tournament is slowing. Chance of winning is slowing.
He said the chance of slowing. I think at the way that the moves just went, I think have come to a screeching halt at this point. With the Austrians, the AR coming up against the line, this now I don't know if that's coordination between the French and the English of that support, but I can imagine that was supposed to be a self bounce and just a cheeky get out of my way in Wales. But I think now that although David has taken the opportunity to retreat to Gascony, so that opens up maybe a little bit of a window, but I think it's probably safe to say that David will not be getting the result he needs anyways to take this tournament.
That's a really strange move of Gascony to Brest. Like, when you're attacking Burgundy and there's going to be a retreat, that's a really odd way to do it and allow that retreat to be a thing rather than force it up to Picardy where it's not really a threat. Like, Jason has been kicked out of Tyrolia. That's the price you pay for Fleet Trieste. I guess the plan here was that they thought Italy would recover Ionian Sea, and so he'd actually get out into Adriatic. It didn't work. Italy didn't do it. It doesn't matter. The Russian fleets are coming along, and the supports will be there. And sooner or later, Italy's position is going to be breached. And in the meantime, David's position just continues to get worse.
And any stab potential between the AR, I think, is also not. It's not over. They're Russia doesn't have a ton of pressure and can reposition, but at least for this year, has signaled very strongly that the AR will grind this. And I think from motivation side, Jason can be telling Robert, I don't need to win. You will win this board. Just keep me in the running.
Yep.
And Robert, doesn't have a shot at the tournament. We'll say, look, I want a good result, and I'm happy. I want to have fun, and Jason can be a great ally and fun player to work with. So I think for both of them, they're going to get what they want out of this game.
Yeah, I mean, Robert essentially has Tunis guaranteed next year now with the way this board's just gone.
Yeah.
Just a reminder, so this was Saturday night. There's no time limits. Robert solos this board. He gets 3,434. So
Just put him over the top.
So no one's counted out at this point.
That would be something.
And that's why we're here covering it. How are we going to get there? Ooh.
Well, Tyrolia falls back to Jason. David does not recapture Berlin. David uses that army in Gascony to disengage, I guess, with France. They do it in a way that France actually gets to rebuild it as a fleet. So maybe there is a late forming FG here, which is quite smart. France has decided they're not getting anything out of England, so they're just going to go the other way. Fair enough. The problem is that Norway is now actually about to fall. So it's still not great news for Germany. David he's sort of fighting fires on one front. He puts them out on one front and just creates another on the other. Yeah. And that's the problem with Germany and multi-front wars. But yeah, this still just looks great for AR. Like Tunis is guaranteed. There's going to be a guarantee to keep Ionian Sea while you do it, and sooner or later that means that Venice will fall, and so will all of the Italian dots. Like even though France is going to be able to put 2 fleets into the Med, they'll be there to hold back AR from going further, not to stop Italy from falling. It's too late to stop Italy from falling.
Yep.
I think in another game, I might predict, or I might say it makes sense for a Western triple to form here. Do what you need to do, but I think with what's happened this game and over the course of some of these boards, I think the level of trust and willingness to go along with something like that is a bit diminished.
I just don't see why Randy would say, hey, yeah, I'm just going to help David win the tournament instead of Jason, when David's the one who stabbed him for Norway and sort of torpedoed his own faint hopes.
Yeah, 10 years of bad blood will sometimes comes back into play. All right, my prediction is Army Naples. Who's fighting me?
I mean, the at this point, you go Army Naples, you lose Tunis, you disband the fleet, and you go.
Darn.
Well, actually, you know what? That's not a terrible build if you know.
Oh, it's not a terrible build. I was hoping for Army Naples.
Well, no, but the fleet, if you know the French are coming and are willing to help, that fleet is very useful in this case. That fleet is very useful to stop the AR. If you can make the correct guess on blocking Ionian Sea, on whether to move from Adriatic and or whatever, without losing Adriatic in the process by AR just not going for Ionian Sea. There are ways this could work out quite nicely for Italy to at least hold on to something before the end of this game.
Orders in the box, Spring 05. Goes right for Tunis.
Looks like, straight for Tunis. Not Robert not missing the opportunity. This was the only year season that was going to be guaranteed. Looks like he will hold on to it this year. I could actually no, he might not. I don't think he will. With Adriatic has held in position, so I don't think he will hold on to it. Which is going to be an interesting set of orders here. We do see that Smyrna goes to Khan, but that must be to get that army into a more useful position rather than anything sinister. Although it is Jason Massbaum, so an accidental "oops, I held" could easily come.
Could also be a trade between them because Russia is getting Norway and Tunis right now, and it could well be, hey, I need one of them, and
yeah, and it gives flexibility to walk out next year or in the fall if it doesn't work. So that there could be an argument.
I think also the problem is that Tunis can't be defended, but Tunis can't be retaken while defending Naples. So the right play for Robert right now is Ionian Sea to Naples, and that means you either get Tunis or Naples. You can't lose.
Now, is it Ionian Sea to Naples, or do we see an Albania to Naples or Apulia convoy here?
If you're doing that, then Con has to be walking out, because otherwise you're just flipping two.
Con has to be working out, but that would effectively crack the Italian and make it wide open. But that's, if I'm Robert, would I give Jason that convoy? Because again, he's the one that gets all of that's where all of his units are going to be. If I'm Robert and want to cause some chaos and have some fun, maybe that's something you do. But if he's wants to manage Jason a bit more, then I don't know if we'll see that.
It's also interesting what England does. Like, they've gone to North Sea and North Atlantic. Are they there as actually, I'm going to be nice, I'm just going to let you guys fight and I won't do anything? Or is he just going to come in and
convoy to Belgium?
Yeah, convoy to Belgium, convoy to Denmark, do something incredibly anti-German, which is very plausible right now, and which would sort of be the death knell for David Miller if England does anything hostile to him at this stage. I guess David could walk into Paris.
I suppose he could.
If you're Jason Massbaum, why aren't you doing Serbia to Romania, holding in Khan, taking the dots now and saying, come at me? Does that open the gap for the people in the West?
Why do you need to? Why do the diplomatic damage, risk this game going on forever in some sort of board-wide alliance against you? If you've got a great alliance with Russia, why snap? You don't need to top.
And if there's ever an instance where he needs a dot, they're there. Those he can take Romania and Khan anytime from this position.
Especially if he's taking Con by agreement, which means he can still stab a rum and anchor at a later point anyway.
Exactly. No, well, there he goes.
It's Jason. I did not know this was happening, but I'm just saying it's Jason Massbaum.
Which, the hold Con, the taking rum, Kevin, you've played with Jason longer than McCullough and myself have, so I think your read of him was astute. Now, again, Randy making the move against David, like you said, McCullough, I think that's put the nail in his coffin. It looks like David believed Randy was going to convoy him into Norway, which would have succeeded because Robert supported Sweden instead of Norway. Is that a mistake? Just somebody writing the wrong country? Because those were correct orders, just to the wrong place.
Yeah.
Or the sandboxer entered them wrong and it didn't matter. It is also possible.
Yeah.
It's interesting that Randy has seemingly decided that his enemy is everybody. He's just out for revenge. He's known for Belgium. He's known for Mid-Atlantic Ocean. Screw you, France. Screw you, Germany. I'm just coming for everything. I'm going to walk into Portugal because why not?
And that has become very real with the convoy from Spain to Tuscany. Randy suddenly, with the build here, is in a very good position.
You're nice. He's not in a very good position.
He's in a lot better position than before.
Yeah, his position has improved the most drastically of anyone, but it's not a tournament position in the slightest. It's just I'm going to be fun and I'm going to attack people position. Because David Miller pulling 2 is about to sort of disappear as a big factor in this game. Barring a miracle.
With Jason's 2 builds, so this is the tournament for Jason Massbaum right now, right?
Oh, it's 7 anchor guaranteed, 2 more armies coming down. I mean, this game ends here, right?
There's no Jason wants it to end. I guarantee that, and I don't see anyone in the West thinking they've got a shot at this point. So this could be the end right here.
The thing is that there is still play for the other positions, and someone like Randy, like his position to win the tournament isn't there, but his position to improve his tournament position is actually quite significant. So there is
second place he could have a legitimate shot at second, I believe, based on where he came into this game. So
second or third, there's just overtaking David and Brad would give him a pretty good overall position. So there is reason, I think, for Randy to possibly continue this game. I don't think there's reason for anyone else.
No, and he wouldn't even need to do anything. He could support hold, let those two fall to the other powers, and still come out ahead of them with the way the scoring system works. So,
yeah.
But there it goes.
That is not how we do things here. We end it when we know it's over.
It's late. It's Saturday night. You know,
there's other things to go and do. Go and hang out. Yeah.
It's 19:05. It's not late. It's probably like 9 o'clock.
That's fair. But there's probably other games going on at the convention and stuff, and drinking and all that stuff that you'd probably rather do. It is whether Randy really wants to just grind out for a second or third place overall in the standings, because it's Jason's game or tournament in the bag.
Yeah,
and it is by 3,600 points. Jason Mastbaum has caused he's mast bomb on the mountain. So. Congratulations, Jason. 3 excellent results. And 1,900 is a score that you're normally seeing out of a winner. You're getting a sole top, you're getting a shared top, you're getting some seconds right there. So, well played all around there.
Yeah, even for David Miller, but the result that he got on that board, obviously not the one he wanted, but still ending up in second place after that board was very good on him.
Yeah, I think Jason played really, really well. He got that good alliance going with Russia and just went, hey, let's just work together. I don't need to top the board. In the end, he did top the board, but it's a very good argument that you can make going, hey, I don't need to top. I'm happy to be your junior, and we'll both just run to the tournament. And Russia, I mean, there's a world where that was almost by arrangement at the end, because Russia didn't veto the draw out of anger either.
Yeah.
So maybe Russia was just like, yeah, fair enough, whatever, you can have it. And I mean, Jason, like he won the DBNI last year. It's been a little while since he won a tournament, and it's good to see him back up the top and getting a good result in the bag.
Yes, this will give him some points to get back. I don't know if we've got a DBNI. We're gonna check when the next DBNI countdown will be out. I know DBN Deadline, our featured program, had one a couple weeks back. I'll probably put it on if you're watching this not live, it'll be on our recommended videos when the stream ends here in a minute or two. And we'll get the next countdown. Maybe we'll get that one on the featured video afterwards. Because really, guys, it's October 29th. I believe we released the DBNI standings that last week of January, first week of February. So we're 3 months away before the big one kicks off. But plenty of diplomacy to get to before that. We've got, again, Euro DipCon coming up November 24 to 26. Before that, we've got VDL the weekend before. And before that, we got Tour Britain, which is our next upcoming virtual face-to-face, where the new king or queen of Britain will be crowned, or maybe King Tim Crosby will retain. I don't know. I've not watched a single minute of the TOB this year, so I should get caught up before 2 weekends from now. So
I believe it's a bit of a battle between Tim Crosby, Bradley Grace, Jason Bennett, and Micah Blom. I think Chris Ward might be in contention as well, because he got a big top last time I saw him play.
Jason was in contention last year, if I remember correctly, too. So good to see some of the same names. I like it. So I'm an old, from Chicago, the Bulls and the Knicks, the Bulls and the Pistons, old NBA. Like, those rivalries always kind of made the sport better. The ratings were better. So when you get the same folks battling out year after year, you kind of have some favorites you want to pull for. So I won't say who my favorites are. We must stay impartial here on DBN. But we'll let you guys turn in 2 weeks to check it out. Liam, final thoughts on the day?
Great tournament overall. The all the boards had a lot of entertaining. There's twists and turns on most of them. I think that theme of Sevastopol to Romania that stayed in Carnage. Whether that's something that has come back or is in fashion and will continue to stay in fashion, or if this was an isolated event, although McCullough seemed to say that started to pick up a little bit more in steam. So that'll be interesting to see over the upcoming events with BDL and Tour Britain, if that's a factor that comes back. But no, great weekend. Congratulations to Jason, and I think he must be feeling pretty good about himself. After that game, I think he rode that game and that final board and didn't face too much of an opposition. So he was really in command for that one.
McCall.
Yeah, I think brilliant play by Jason. David Miller played a really good tournament as well, and they sort of took out the other contenders in the second round and left it as those two as the top dogs. So Ed Sullivan was no longer in the picture, and everyone else had to do a lot of things going their way for them to actually come into it. And then Jason, he won the head-to-head. He gave Russia the room to go after David, and it paid off. It got Jason the tournament in the bag, and really, really well played by him. And yeah, the other thing I like to say, like the last stream, we saw a lot of really good Turkeys. This stream, we've seen a lot of really good Austrias. It's nice to see the little countries, the less favored countries, doing well and having sort of everything come up in their favor. So good to see it's not just France winning every game again.
Yeah, this has been a very varied season, up and down. It's great to see. When Liam, we mentioned about going into Romania, it's kind of seasons. Like, we're getting into the fall here in the Northern Hemisphere, and things are changing, and you get that in diplomacy, and that's why it's such a great game. It's not the same game every single time. You get to different players, different thoughts. So yes, congratulations, Jason. Well played tournament. Great to see some names that I remember growing up with. When I first started playing, you could still tell the genius and the mindset is still there. I love watching some of the I'll call them old guys because we're all getting older, but it's still fun to play. I got to get out there. Got to get out there to play sometime. So if you haven't already, please like the video. Our subscriber membership has stayed well above our magic number. So thank you for tuning in every so often. We try and get you guys some good content. Once, twice, 3 times a month. I think we're on about 3 times a month, which is pretty good. So come back, watch some of the old stuff. We've got again, DBNI, VDL finals are getting in. Watch how things have changed. Go back and watch kind of last November's, last December's as you're starting to prepare to play for it. The games, while they may be seasonal, the winter does bring out the knives. They gotta get into the championship form. So we've got a lot of it coming up. The next one, like I said, next broadcast will probably be the Saturday the 18th for league night, and then we really didn't promote this one as much, but the virtual diplomacy championship will be in December. We're working on organization. That will certainly be a big broadcast here on DBN, and we will get that out there as we get closer. So Liam McCullough, thank you so much for joining me today. I had a blast. This was a fun casual tournament, but we got to see some great play, and we will see everyone on the next one. So with that, stay safe and stab well.